American comic, I'm lost, I'm surrounded by superheroes with father issues. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 351 Superman's Dream. My daughter's name is Leela. Boom. Outside the Earth, the downed satellite emitted burning flames, and fiercely issued a roaring sound that pierced the air, falling to the ground. The short-haired girl in Superman's uniform flew over and hugged the falling satellite. But the violent impact directly smashed her down heavily. The black-haired girl with a resolute face gritted her teeth and held the satellite, desperately suppressing the falling behemoth. But she was still suppressed and smashed down. No. Hold on, the girl gritted her teeth and said to herself. The red cape behind her fluttered, but the black-haired girl was still suppressed and fell from the sky at a high speed. The air was cut, and she fell straight to the ground holding the satellite. At the critical moment, a blue-black figure flew towards her. Injustice Superman flew towards her like lightning. This place is still Superman's dream. He fell into the dream and didn't know how long he had been in the dream. Batman was serving his sentence in prison for killing the Joker for himself, and Lyra grew up safely under his care. From being a baby in his arms, she learned to walk, to call her father, and for the first time, she learned to fly in the air. With the help of the Green Arrow, Lyra learned how to shoot her heat vision. Following the Godfather, she learned those strange magics. The little girl who used to follow behind him and was a little introverted has now become a girl who can stand on her own. You can handle it, don't worry, Lyra, I'm behind you. At this time, the unjust Superman with some white temples flew to his daughter to encourage her. Seeing her father appear beside her, Lyra was suddenly full of strength. With a roar, she hugged the falling satellite and stopped the falling speed. After successfully sending the satellite to the ground, Lyra clapped her hands. Dad, come with me to space to see it, of course, if you insist. The father and daughter smiled at each other and flew into outer space together. Lyra looked at the blue and vast planet in front of her, her eyes full of blue. She closed her eyes, and her delicate and heroic features seemed to shine in space. Dad, what's wrong? Superman stood beside Leela and asked her with a smile. I can see the world. Leela opened her eyes, and her eyes became as dazzling as aquamarine gems. I can see that the world is, after a pause, she said to Superman, is falling apart. This is what the world is going through, Leela. Wars, plagues, and famines make the world worse, Superman said to her in a heavy tone. This is how the world is made, Leela. What should we do? Leela's aquamarine eyes flashed with sadness, and she turned her eyes away from the misery of the world she was observing. Injustice Superman was silent for a moment, then said to his daughter, we can do what we want. We have this power. We can stop them from hurting ourselves. We can freely control the fate of this world. Lyra listened to her father's seemingly violent tone, smiled playfully, raised her finger and said to him, or, you know, Dad, we don't have to sound like a second-rate supervillain. Lyra, who had her own ideas, smiled and said to Superman, we are unable to do it independently. We can't fight for them and do what they should do for them. You and Grandpa Peter taught me this. Gently casting her eyes at the blue planet in front of her, Lyra said to her father, I think we can't have the idea of suppressing people. We can't confront them, but we should guide them, of course. I think we should give that organization called Superstorm a good beating before negotiating. Superman looked at his daughter lovingly. Didn't you do that? Yes. Lyra closed her eyes, smiled and raised her fist. I gave their leader a hard punch. Superstorm is an influential organization on the ground that contains superhumans. Well, Leela, what would you do? To this world. After hearing Superman's question, Leela was stunned for a moment and said, I think. Can I talk to them? Superman smiled and said to her, I'm not one of them, Leela. No matter what, I will always be an outsider. Leela turned around and faced Superman, but I am one of them. Dad, you are a Kryptonian, and Mom is an Earthling. Can I tell them what I see? Looking at her blue home, Leela expressed her idea of making the Earth a better place. Superman followed Leela's gaze and looked at the Earth. He felt proud of his daughter. Leela has been trying to make the world a better place with her influence. Unlike his own rough ideas, Leela has always been gentle to the world. Immersed in the beauty in front of him, he thought for a while and said to Leela, your grandfather once tried to tell the truth to the world and let the world accept us, but, I know, But I still want to try, Leela said her idea firmly. Of course, if you insist, Injustice Superman put his hand on Leela's shoulder and said with relief. New York, United Nations Building. Superman and his wife Lois, holding hands, watched Leela's speech on the stage. I am a child of two worlds. Leela, wearing her father's Superman uniform, looked down at her parents. Lois and Superman gave her an encouraging look. Huh? Taking a deep breath, Leela's slightly nervous heart calmed down. Looking at the dark audience listening to her, she lowered her head to look at the manuscript in her hand. With the encouragement of her parents, she suddenly felt that she didn't need the manuscript. I am a child of two worlds. I was born in this world, but my father came from another world. He was a refugee from another world. Unfortunately, that world is gone. The people of my father's world are gone. The reason they are gone is because their narrow-minded leaders are against the truth. Leela spoke to the people below confidently and sincerely. We cannot allow our world to follow in their footsteps. Wise people tell us that we have limited time. After a pause, Leela's blue eyes stared at the UN officials in the front. And I am going to give a speech today to tell you that I can see this. My eyes can see further into the future. When I look at the Earth, I can see that we don't have much time left, Leela said as she cast her eyes on the crowd in the back row. She saw superheroes such as Batman, Kid Flash, Midnight Warrior, Big Barda, Tornado, etc., Flash Kid, the nephew of Barry Allen, the Flash, Midnight Warrior, the patrolman of the Storm Universe, and one of the few openly gay superheroes, Big Barda, a defected Apocalypse Warrior, Red Tornado, a robot with airflow control and defense. We don't have time. We don't have time to let cruel, selfish, and greedy people rule us. We don't have time to waste on listening to the speeches of ignorant people. We don't have time to fight each other. Lyra sent out her deafening voice to the audience below. There are more important battles worth fighting, that is, fighting for our survival. I can't do it alone. Lyra took a deep breath and looked at the audience listening to her speech below, but I can help you. I believe that all of us can unite and save our world together. After Lyra finished her speech, the crowd burst into warm applause and cheers. Countless people stood up and offered their support for Lyra's speech. Superman and Lois stood up, applauded, and looked at each other with relief. The two saw the relief and pride in each other's eyes. Leaving the United Nations building, Superman and Lois walked in the crowd, and suddenly heard a voice from behind. Hey, Clark. Superman turned around and saw the middle-aged Bruce with a beard walking towards him. Bruce had been released from prison and now returned to his position as the richest man in Gotham. How was it? Bruce, Leela's speech just now was good, wasn't it? Superman proudly showed off to his old friend. Not bad, although a little preachy, Bruce shrugged and said. Bruce's wife, Wonder Woman, smiled and said to the two of them, although it may be a bit rude for me to say this, your daughter's performance just now makes both of you look pale in comparison. In the dream of unjust Superman, Wonder Woman married Batman. Superman didn't mind. You are right. Leela's performance just now was very good, but your husband thinks it is a bit preachy? Wonder Woman glanced at Bruce, shook her head, and said with a smile, no, of course he didn't mean that. I'm observing him. I've seen his cynical witticisms at least twice. As the few people were talking, Leela, surrounded by the media, walked out of the United Nations building. Looking at his confident and excellent daughter, Superman felt a complex emotion in his heart. His daughter accomplished what he had not done, not by violence, threats and fear, but by a peaceful and gentle way, so that everyone accepted her. Is this what Bruce has always hoped for? Make the world a better place in a peaceful and beautiful way. He felt relieved in his heart, and suddenly felt that everything in front of him was a little unreal. Why did he feel so unreal and dreamy? He looked up and around, and found that there was something very important that he had forgotten. That was why he didn't see the Godfather on such an important day. Chapter 352, The Flower of Hope in a World of Despair. Smallville Farm. The retired Injustice Superman lay on the fence in the porch, watching the night outside. The farm was quiet, with the occasional sound of crickets. Looking at the stars in the sky and stroking the head of the puppy beside him, he felt unusually calm. Where is she? Lois, who was wearing clothes, came out and asked her husband when she saw him looking at the stars outside. Greenland, she and a team of scientists from all over the world are cooling down the glaciers. Cooling down? It sounds like a meaningful activity. Lois asked her husband, aren't you going to join them? No, I don't need you. Leela can handle it. Superman picked up a bullet hand and sighed slightly. Lois walked to her husband and put her hand on his shoulder. What's wrong? Clark, you look worried. No, I'm not. Superman threw the baseball in his hand, and the puppy immediately chased after it happily. It's just that I have a feeling that it's not real. Time has passed too fast. Our daughter has grown from an introverted little girl to a superhero with responsibilities in the blink of an eye. Time always slips away like this without knowing it. Lois put her hand on Superman's hand on the wooden fence, conveying her warmth to him, and said with a smile, "This is the helplessness of life, Clark, but we have not wasted our years." "I know, Lois. Time is always so ruthless, it seems to take away everything. I am so scared. If it takes you and Lyra away from me, I think I would rather time stay at this moment forever. Look, the stars in the sky are so beautiful." Superman was silent for a while, pointing his finger to the sky. "I really hope that everyone can look at the sky full of stars like me, without burning their eyes, and without having to turn their heads away." Lois didn't say anything, but just held her husband's hand tightly and accompanied him to look at the sky full of stars. The two were admiring the stars in the sky together, and suddenly heard footsteps outside. Unjust Superman looked up, and was surprised to see Peter appear in front of him. "Godfather," Superman exclaimed in surprise. Hearing the other party calling him Godfather, Peter's eyebrows moved. He didn't expect that in this Superman's dream world, he would become the other party's godfather. And Injustice Batman is actually married to Wonder Woman. Obviously in reality, Wonder Woman is the woman who has been with you after Lois's death. Could it be that Injustice Superman is a person with special hobbies? Stroking his chin, Peter fell into deep thought. In the real world, after Peter subdued Injustice Superman with kryptonite, the other party seemed to fall into a coma under the influence of something. Until the guy was in prison with the help of Injustice Batman, the other party still showed no signs of waking up. So Peter entered his dream. He didn't expect Superman's dream to be so wonderful. Not only did Batman kill the Joker for him and go to jail, but this guy also has a perfect daughter. The kind and righteous Leela is probably another self reflected in the heart of Injustice Superman. He knew that he was sliding towards the abyss, but he could not and would not escape from it, so an ideal self appeared in his dream. He placed all the beauty and hope of this ideal on his daughter. But dreams will eventually wake up, and what they face is the reality of having nothing. "Clark," Peter said to Clark, whose temples were turning white, "we can talk." Lois greeted Peter, and then looked at her husband with a strange expression. Superman smiled and patted Lois's hand. "You go back and rest first. I'll talk to the Godfather and go upstairs later." Lois nodded and walked upstairs hesitantly. "Godfather, why are you here so late?" Superman stood up and asked Peter. "Because it's time." "Time?" Superman was stunned for a moment, and looked at the starry sky in the distance with a confused look. "Speaking of which, I've been hearing a lot of voices lately, as if they were calling me from the edge, as if to take me back to a place I should go." His eyes revealed a sense of powerlessness. "I don't know what it is. I've been trying to block them out, but I can't do it." "Godfather, what is that?" "That's the call of reality. Although this place is perfect, it's not reality." Peter walked in front of him and looked into his eyes. "You should know what happened in reality, and you should also understand that this is just a dream world." "Reality?" Superman was stunned for a moment, and asked in disbelief, "Is this a dream?" "Yes, a dream you don't want to wake up from." "Are you saying that Lila doesn't exist?" Superman took a step back, with an expression of disbelief on his face. "Impossible. I grew up watching her. She is so real. She can't be fake. Her life has just begun. How could it end like this?" Making an unwilling sound, Superman suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head. Then a message entered his mind. Covering his forehead, he quickly understood what happened. The scenes of fighting with Peter in the Fortress of Solitude before emerged in his mind. No. No, with a painful sound, Injustice Superman fell to his knees helplessly. "Impossible. Why did the god of fate do this to me? Why?" Tears welled up in his eyes and he burst into tears. He thought he had everything, but in the end he found out that everything was false. If he hadn't had this dream in the beginning, it wouldn't be so painful. Knowing that what he might have once had was shattered before his eyes, Superman's spirit that had been maintained finally couldn't hold up and collapsed in an instant. Peter looked at the collapsed Injustice Superman, walked to the porch, and looked at the stars in the sky. "There is one thing I think your dream is correct," Peter said to him slowly. "That is, this world needs a Superman. After all, there are countless powerful and mysterious enemies in this world, but it does not need a Superman like you." She should have powerful strength, a pure heart, a strong spirit, and an unswerving love for mankind. Peter said to him with a complicated expression, she will be an upright, honest and kind person who will not be defeated by the torrent of reality, but will change the direction of the torrent. I saw these in Leela. Although she is only a person in a dream, perhaps in another world, she really exists. Peter took out the ruby and said slowly in Superman's astonished eyes, you will be imprisoned as a punishment for you, Clark, but this world needs a Superman. Her name is Leela Patrick Kent. What? Superman said in disbelief. Peter frowned and activated the power of the ruby. An invisible energy instantly swept across the entire farm space. Most of the magic power in the ruby was instantly drained away. The ability of the sleep demon also includes creating dream creatures. According to Peter's understanding, the Sandman once created a guy named Collins. This guy sneaked out of the dream world in 1916 and turned into a serial killer who enjoyed killing people in Berlin, Germany. In addition, there are many creatures in the dream kingdom of the Sandman, and crows and various servants follow him. Although Peter has mastered the 3 artifacts of the Sandman, he is not proficient in the control of these magic powers. If he really creates a nightmare creature, especially a powerful nightmare creature, it is estimated that a lot of magic power will be consumed. So he has never tried it before. Now he wants to exercise his authority and use the magic in the ruby to create a powerful nightmare creature. As for the nightmare creature, according to Peter's understanding, it will only be completely loyal to itself. If you want to take it back, the other party will disappear and turn into magic to return to the dream. When the Sandman went to Berlin to deal with Collins, who had great power, did not resist at all, and his body turned into magic and was absorbed by the Sandman. If there was no accident in the middle, Collins would probably be killed directly. In Justice, Superman didn't know what Peter was thinking at this moment. At this moment, he was shocked to see the farm being enveloped by an invisible force. The stars in the night sky seemed to emit a dazzling light in his eyes. Everything was illuminated in his eyes. In the dazzling light, Superman saw a familiar figure appearing at the farm. The blue uniform, red cape, and short black hair, the other party slowly walked towards him. Huff, suddenly waking up from his sleep, Injustice Superman gasped. After a while, he found himself imprisoned in a room. He was wearing a restraining suit and was powerless. He clenched his fists and wanted to hammer the glass in front of him, but found that it didn't work at all. His strength seemed to be completely imprisoned here. Damn it! Wheeze, Leela. He covered his head and angrily knocked on the glass wall with his hands. After knocking several times, the glass was not damaged at all. Sitting on the ground powerlessly, Injustice Superman lowered his head in pain. The scenes in the dream kept playing in front of him. Wheeze, who accompanied him throughout his life, Lila, whom he had watched since childhood, and Bruce, his best friend in his dreams, all these existences turned into bubbles. No. And Peter Patrick, he said. He said that the world needs a Superman. Lila may still exist, she exists. I saw her murmuring. The unjust Superman quickly stood up and shouted to the outside, I want to see the Godfather, I want to see Peter Patrick, open the door, I want to see him. After knocking for a long time, seeing that no one paid attention to him, Superman finally sat on the ground powerlessly. Is everything really just a dream? Just as he fell into despair, suddenly, a voice rang out from outside. Dad, it's the end of the month, I'm begging for the monthly tickets from the readers, and I bow 90 degrees. Chapter 353 Peter, call me Master. Leela, okay, Grandpa. Damn it, looking up at the red sunlight shining from the ceiling of the prison, Injustice Superman felt that he was surrounded by weakness and powerlessness. He would lose all his abilities if he was irradiated by the red sun. Needless to say, this is the cage Batman made to imprison himself. He should have prepared for many years in advance, and now he finally got what he wanted. Damn it. Leela, Lois, are you there? He hammered the glass wall hard, but no one responded to him. In the end, Superman sat down weakly and decadently. Did the dreamlike bubble finally burst? Covering his forehead, the huge pain attacked his whole body like a shadow. The shadow that tightly wrapped him almost made him unable to breathe. Dad, suddenly, a familiar and unfamiliar voice suddenly sounded outside. Hearing this voice, Superman turned around abruptly. It turned out that the person standing in front of him was his daughter in his dream. Leela was wearing a blue Superman uniform with a red cape behind her. She has short black hair and blue eyes as gentle and beautiful as Lois. Looking at Leela, who is smiling at him, Superman was stunned. Leela, he couldn't believe his eyes. Isn't this a dream? Of course not, Dad, we are all in reality. Although I just left the Antarctic expedition team, I found that my world has changed a lot when I woke up, but people always have to adapt to new lives. You told me before. Leela stretched her hand on the glass wall, trying to convey something to Superman inside. Grandpa Peter said that I should just treat it as a dream. When I wake up, I will return to the real world. Oh, sorry, Grandpa said that I can't call him Grandpa, but call him Master. Leela smiled slyly. I guess if he is called Grandpa, he will feel like an old man. Leela, created by Peter using most of the magic power of the ruby, has the same personality as Leela in Superman's dream, and has all the memories of the dream world. However, she doesn't know that she is a nightmare creature, and subconsciously thinks that she is still a Kryptonian. As for Peter who created her, she was ignorantly full of attachment and longing, and would subconsciously obey Peter's orders. Although Leela now doesn't understand why she has such a strange feeling about her grandfather. But it's really bad. I had a dream. Everything in the dream was vivid, but the memory of reality became blurred. Leela took a deep breath, and a frustrated expression appeared on her face. Superman looked at Leela blankly, and a ray of sunshine suddenly shone into his desperate heart. He didn't expect that Peter could really pull Leela from the dream world to reality. What should have been a mirage has become a real reality. Looking through the glass, seeing his daughter's gentle and pure blue eyes, he suddenly felt that the god of fate was finally willing to give him arms. Lila, it's great to see you. Me too, Dad. I used to think that if I had a boy, I would name him Joe, and if it was a girl, I would name him Leela. Oh, I finally know where my name came from. I thought my mother gave it to me before. Superman put his hands on the glass wall, letting his hands face Leela through the glass. Lila, your mother was taken away from me. We should have had a child, we should have had you, but I overreacted to it and lost myself, Superman said to Leela with regret. I made an irreparable mistake. I know, Dad. Leela also became sad. Her blue eyes were filled with sadness. I know what happened in Metropolis. My mother died because of it, and countless people died in the explosion. In the dream, the tragedy was prevented by my grandfather, but reality is not as perfect as dreams. There are the most beautiful things there, but reality is the cruelest nightmare. Leela tried to smile at her father in her sad mood. But I can change, Dad. You can change too. New resolve can grow from grief. We can do more for this world, make it less tragic. We can create a world where lunatics, villains and tyrants no longer hurt people. We can reverse the climate crisis. We can stop those unnecessary wars. Leela's eyes were filled with hope that Superman could clearly see. I belong to this world. I can use my power to help it. As she spoke, she looked down at the S mark on her chest. This symbol should be a symbol of hope, a symbol that makes people who see it feel hopeful. But when I was on the street just now, people saw it on my chest and showed fear on their faces. This shouldn't happen. With sadness in her eyes, she lowered her head and closed her eyes. Hope should not become fear. Looking at his daughter's sad expression, Superman apologized to her self-blamingly. I'm sorry, Leela. He was silent for a moment, and said to Leela, the Godfather is right. The world needs a Superman. Leela, you can replace me, you can do better, and you have the power to change everything. The imprisoned unjust Superman suddenly calmed down. Go, Leela, you shouldn't stay here. The outside world needs you more. Superman raised his head and looked at his daughter with relief. You will always be my pride and Lois's pride, Dad. Leela's eyes flashed with a trace of reluctance. She knew that her father had made a mistake and must be punished here. Although she wanted to release her father, she knew she couldn't do it. Not to mention that Grandpa Peter disagreed. Even if Grandpa agreed, she couldn't do such a thing as jailbreaking. In the dream world, Uncle Bruce made a mistake and was willing to be imprisoned. Now my father will be like Uncle Bruce if he makes a mistake. I can't trample on the laws and order of this world. Taking a deep breath, Leela placed her hand on the glass and stared at Superman. I love you, Dad. Swoosh. After saying goodbye to her father, Leela flew out of the prison. A tear slipped from the corner of her eye and dripped onto the ground. Watching his daughter's back as she left, a complex expression appeared on the face of Injustice Superman. Metropolis. Leela's red cape fluttered as she flew in the air, looking down at the city that was completely different from the one in her dream. The metropolis in her dream had not been attacked by a nuclear bomb, and everything was so beautiful. But the real metropolis was destroyed by the Joker's nuclear bomb. Although the city has been rebuilt now, she seemed to be able to hear the cries of the people who used to be here. This place is so similar to the city in my dream, the people are similar, the place is similar, but I can feel the difference. Whispering to herself, Leela closed her eyes and took a deep breath of the city's air. The air is a little fresher. Opening her arms, Leela stretched her slender and healthy limbs to her heart's content. If I have the ability to extend, if I can let go of the barrier in my heart, stopping her flying posture, Leela closed her eyes and quietly felt a breath of the city. I can hear it. Suddenly, Leela's blue eyes suddenly opened. She heard screams coming from the street. Help! Hearing the cry for help, Leela's expression became serious, and she immediately flew in the direction of the sound. On the rooftop of a residential building, a boy who was a few years old was holding the railing of the rooftop with his feet hanging in the air, struggling desperately. Although he kept trying to climb up, he finally lost his strength and his hands fell off the railing and fell straight to the ground. Standing on the rooftop, the mother who didn't have time to rescue screamed, "No! My child!" At the critical moment, Leela's figure turned into blue lightning and flew towards the falling boy. "Catch you!" With a dong, Leela gently hugged the falling boy. Hovering in the air, she said to the stunned boy, "Next time, don't play on the rooftop. It's very dangerous, understand?" The boy nodded blankly. Holding the boy, who was not sure whether he was stunned or shocked, she flew to his mother. Leela handed the boy in her arms to her. "Here you are, Mom, Bobby, my child, it's great that you're okay." Taking the child from Leela, the mother thanked her excitedly. Thank you. If it weren't for you, Bobby would have been in trouble. You are such a good person." With tears in her eyes, the mother kissed the child and thanked Leela. But the next second, the mother looked up and saw the S logo on Leela's chest, and was stunned. Looking up at Leela standing outside the rooftop, she said in a panic, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry." The mother quickly held the boy and walked quickly into the room. At the same time, she said to Leela in a hurried tone, "This kind of thing will not happen again, I promise." Bang! The door of the rooftop was closed. Standing outside, Leela felt that the surroundings were very quiet, with only the whistling of the wind. Leela could feel that the other party was afraid. But her mother was not afraid of herself, she couldn't even see her face clearly. She was afraid of the symbol on her chest. Leela's blue eyes were filled with uncontrollable sadness. She wanted to say something to her mother, but suddenly felt that her words were so pale and powerless. Looking up, she looked at the city streets in the distance. The government forces and the rebels were still sporadically exchanging fire, the city was still in turmoil, and the people here were still in fear and anxiety. So, suddenly, a familiar voice came from behind her. What do you think? Leela. Chapter 354 Beautiful Bubbles? No, you are the real you. Grandpa. Leela made a surprised sound, looking at Peter who suddenly appeared behind her. Peter coughed, "Call me Master, Leela." "Okay, Grandpa." Peter was immediately furious. Although Leela was created by himself, after having her own thoughts, she became rebellious so soon? Shaking his head, Peter threw out the messy thoughts in his mind. "How is it? Leela, what do you think now?" Peter asked her. Leela raised her aqua blue eyes and looked at the sunset as the city gradually turned dark. The red sunset reflected her glittering face. "This world is so quiet." "Quiet? But it's not quiet, Leela." "But I can just feel her quietness, Grandpa, not because it's quiet, nor because it's free. Yes, I can see that she's quiet because everyone is trembling and holding their breath, because everyone is afraid to make a sound." Leela looked up at the sunset and fell into a sad mood. Peter didn't speak, hanging in the air with her, bathing in the glory of the sunset. "Grandpa, well, I'm here, Leela. My memory of reality is always vague. I feel that my existence depends on you, Grandpa. The illusory or unreal dream, and the reality. Can you tell me which one is the place I should stay?" Leela already had a vague guess about her own existence. "Am I real, Grandpa, or am I just a bubble created in a beautiful dream? A bubble that can be punctured at any time?" she asked Peter confusedly. "No, of course you are not." Peter gently hugged the sad Leela. "Maybe at the beginning you were a beautiful part of a dreamlike dream, but from the moment you were born, you had your own life, you had your own thoughts, you are now extremely real. Look, you are talking in front of me, you have your own thoughts, you are you. What if everything about me is just a memory of others? What if all my experiences are false? What is my meaning?" Peter gazed at the sunset and said after a long silence, As long as you have that memory full of love, it is enough, Leela. Most of our lives are spent in this inability to distinguish between reality and falsehood. In the endless universe, we are so small. All the pain, happiness, sadness, and happiness may just be an insignificant and false moment. What is important is the present life, not the past experience. Peter stroked Leela's short hair. That experience full of love, neither you nor your father will forget it. Life and thought, it's incredible that I can have it. Leela leaned her head on Peter's chest and looked at the sunset on the horizon. I hope everyone sees the sunset like me, Grandpa. Lyra's blue eyes, looking at the setting sun, revealed a fascination in her eyes. It won't burn your eyes, and you don't have to turn your head away. It's not just a burning yellow fireball, even photos can't fully show it. It's incomparable. Grandpa, do you like it? Lyra, yes, because it's almost the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Almost. Yes, almost. Lyra smiled at Peter. The two looked at the sunset together. After a while, she asked Peter, will I become the kind of person you hope I will be? Grandpa, no, Lyra, only you can decide what kind of person you can become, and this is something that no one else can decide, but I still hope to be someone who makes you and my father proud, Lyra said, turning her head to the gradually setting, beautiful sunset. Metropolitan Street. Star-Lord and Loki are dealing with government troops and Atlanteans. Using magic to knock the Atlantean away. Loki used his staff to condense a magical energy and charged at the enemy. Several Atlanteans gathered together and were instantly knocked away and fell heavily to the ground. I guess my father must be slacking off at this time, Loki complained to Star-Lord while attacking. Star-Lord pressed the switch on his mask, revealing his sweaty face. You didn't see the scene, why are you so sure? Because this is my father's habit. He will never take action for anything we can handle, and even if he does, it's just slacking off. Star-Lord pulled the trigger and fired the elemental bullet at the Atlantean. Although he agreed with what Loki said, he would not agree. Who knows if his father is around? Or if Clark stays nearby, after he tells his father, he will become the one who talks bad about him behind his back. This made him cautious. Swoosh, just as the two continued to fight with different thoughts, a sound of breaking through the air suddenly came from a distance. The two looked up in astonishment, and saw a whistling sound flying towards them. The blue figure and the red-cloaked figure flew forward at high speed along the street. The airflow along the way instantly knocked the government troops and Atlanteans on both sides to the ground. With a bang, they fell to the ground. Leela grabbed the fierce Atlantean and threw him along the ground. The tall and strong Atlantean was thrown out by her and knocked down a group of people. Facing the enemy attacking from behind, Leela's eyes suddenly shot at her laser, melting the opponent's weapons. Launching super speed, a blue stream of light passed in front of the enemy. In a flash, Leela knocked down all the enemies on the scene. After hovering in the air, she glanced at Loki and Star-Lord on the ground, nodded slightly, and then flew into the sky with a boom. Bang! 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 As she continued to accelerate, bursts of sonic booms came from the air. She flew faster than the speed of sound, leaving a trail of cone-shaped clouds in the air, and disappeared from their side in an instant. Loki and Star-Lord looked at each other. Neither of them knew about Lyra's birth. Who is that? Another superwoman, Star-Lord asked in disbelief. I don't know, Loki put away his staff. I guess it should be the superwoman of this world, although I haven't seen her before. It looks like her abilities are similar to Kara's. Loki's eyes narrowed. Maybe we have to inform our father. After dealing with the conflict in Metropolis, Lyra continued to fly to Gotham. All conflicts in Gotham have almost been settled. Only the battle between Zoo and Aquaman has not ended. Zoo originally thought that he could easily defeat the opponent, but he didn't expect the opponent to be so tenacious. Although he retreated repeatedly under Zoo's attack, Aquaman still blocked Zoo's attack with the army of creatures in the ocean. Zoo used his thermal vision to rush towards the marine creatures that rushed over. The army that appeared from Atlantis continued to flow from the sea to the land. As Zoo was about to continue his attack, he suddenly heard a roaring sound in the air. Then, in his astonished eyes, a figure in a Superman uniform rushed into the Atlantean camp. Bang! Bang! A dull crash sounded, and countless Amazons were knocked out. Seeing Leela suddenly joining the battlefield, Aquaman's expression was a little solemn. Holding the trident, he immediately joined the battlefield to deal with Leela. I don't understand what your relationship with Superman is, but you met me, so let's end it here. Aquaman stared at Leela and said sternly. Your words don't count. Leela shook her head. with some doubts in her eyes. "I remember you were a good person." "What? Nothing. Don't mind my inexplicable complaints. Let's continue." Aquaman listened to Leela's inexplicable words, shook his head, and attacked her directly. With a bang, Leela dodged the trident and blocked the opponent's fist attack at lightning speed. Facing the face of the opponent so close, Leela puffed up her mouth, took a deep breath and exhaled icy breath towards the opponent. The cold quickly enveloped the opponent, and Aquaman, who was unable to dodge, was directly frozen. Leela, who was born from ruby, has the power of almost half a ruby. The powerful magic not only shaped her body comparable to that of a Kryptonian, but also gave her the same abilities as Kryptonians. Mobilizing the energy in her body, she can almost fight against Superman without losing. The frozen Aquaman struggled to get rid of the ice on the surface of his body. As a result, he was hit in the chin by Leela's punch the next second. With a bang, Aquaman immediately flew into the sky uncontrollably. Leela stomped on the ground with her feet and rushed up suddenly. "Huh?" Leela punched Aquaman into the sky. Grabbing the collar of Aquaman, who was unable to react, Leela accelerated upward with a boom and rushed into the sky at supersonic speed. Bang! In space, the captured Aquaman's body heavily bombarded the running satellite. The Wayne Group's satellite was directly deflected by the impact. After grabbing Aquaman's body and swinging the satellite, Leela threw it to the ground. On the other side, Azu opened his mouth in astonishment, looking at Aquaman, who was hit into space. Where did this superwoman come from? How could she be more violent than Kara? Azu began to speculate about the other party's identity. Is she the superwoman of this world? No, I feel a familiar breath on her body. It seems to be the breath of my father. Could this violent girl have something to do with my father? No. Azu looked at Aquaman, who disappeared into the sky, and immediately remembered that he had forgotten a very important thing. Aquaman's trident was also taken away by the other party. That was what he wanted to exchange with his father, and he must not let this guy who suddenly appeared take it away. Azu immediately felt a sense of crisis in his heart. Just when he wanted to fly into the sky, he suddenly heard a whistling sound from the sky. With a deafening bang, Aquaman fell heavily to the ground in front of Zu's stunned eyes, groaned in pain and fainted. The black-haired girl with sparkling eyes slowly landed in front of Zu. "Who are you?" Zu asked in surprise. "Lila Patrick Kent." Chapter 355, Raven, "Can I call you father in private?" Squeak. The room where Injustice Raven was imprisoned was opened. Hearing the sound, Raven turned around suddenly, and saw Peter standing in front of her. "Long time no see, Raven, is it you?" Raven looked at her in astonishment. "Yes, it's me. Sorry I'm a little late." Raven shook her head, ran over excitedly and hugged Peter. "No, not late, not at all, because I know you will come to save me." Being hugged by Raven, Peter was stunned for a moment, and then gently patted her shoulder. "Did Superman do anything to you?" After separating from each other, Peter asked her. "No, he just imprisoned me here. By the way, he has already taken action. You must be careful. Superman is preparing to destroy Gotham and Metropolis, and is preparing to invade your dimension. You are in danger now." Raven immediately remembered something more important. She immediately told Peter about Injustice Superman's plan. "Don't worry, Superman's coalition has been repelled, and he himself has been imprisoned by me." Peter hurriedly comforted him. Although the other party was just the counterpart of her daughter, she put herself in danger in order to inform him. Peter accepted the other party's favor anyway. "Really?" Raven's eyes widened in surprise when she heard Peter say that he had defeated Superman. She didn't expect Superman to be defeated so easily. For 5 years, Superman's existence was like a mountain weighing on everyone's heart. She originally thought that even Peter would have to go through some twists and turns to defeat Superman, but she didn't expect it to end now. Peter nodded and said to her, "Yes, Superman is now imprisoned in the Red Sun prison specially built for him by Batman. If nothing unexpected happens, he will be imprisoned forever." Hearing Peter's words, Raven breathed a sigh of relief. Although everything came to an end with Superman's arrest, she felt an unusual sense of loss in her heart. "Are you leaving too?" After a moment of silence, Raven raised her purple eyes and asked Peter with some sadness. She knew that Peter would eventually return to his own world. Superman might be right. She was just looking for a question without an answer, a dream that would never have an answer. "Well," Peter was silent for a moment, and said to her, "If you have such an idea, Raven, you can come back to my world with me, and that can also be your home." Hearing Peter's words, Raven was stunned for a moment. A look of excitement appeared on her face, and Raven wanted to say yes immediately. But when she thought that she still had a lot of things to do in this world, she had to swallow the words on her lips. I can't do it for the time being. The people in this world have experienced a disaster. I think they need me, and Batman and others also need me, Raven exhaled and said. Although she felt very uncomfortable, she was somewhat relieved when she said the words of refusal. Peter was not surprised by this answer. Anyway, he already knew the location of this world. Using the interdimensional teleportation ability obtained from Little Raven, he could enter this world at any time. After thinking about it, Peter handed a grain of sand to Raven and said to her, "This grain of sand will be with you. If you have any emergency, I can sense it. In addition, through it, you can also see me soon." Raven stretched out her hand in surprise, watching the black sand floating in the air, and then slowly sinking into her palm. "How can I meet you?" Raven closed her palms and asked Peter. In a dream, Peter looked into Raven's purple eyes and said to her, "You are a great magician, Raven. Your magic can also control your spirit to enter the dream. As long as there is this grain of sand, we can meet in the dream world." Hearing what Peter said, Raven showed an expression of disbelief on her face. Meeting through dreams? She now really suspected that Peter was the god of dreams. "I will look forward to it." Raven took a deep breath and asked Peter hesitantly, "Can I have a request? You say, can I call you father? I mean, in private, I won't call you that in public." Perhaps it felt a little abrupt. Raven quickly added another sentence. "Of course." Peter nodded and said. Raven in this world has a strong spiritual perception ability. She seems to have influenced the spiritual world of Little Raven. Peter would naturally not refuse this sensitive girl who longs for family affection. "Thank you, father," Raven murmured in a low voice. She stretched out her hand and raised her palm in front of her eyes. A flash of light flashed in the palm of her hand. At the same time, a bright pure light flashed before Lyra's eyes. After helping Azu to deal with Aquaman, Lyra came to the Fortress of Solitude in the Arctic. This Fortress of Solitude is exactly the same as Lyra's memory. No, it's a little different. Looking at the messy fortress after the battle between Peter and Superman, she whispered. Her feet stepped on the shattered ice, and the cape behind Lyra rustled. Squatting down, stroking the cold and hard ground, she gently swept away the snow on it. A photo frame with broken glass appeared in front of her. Lyra took the photo frame out of the ice with a complicated expression. In the photo frame was a family photo. A photo of her father, Mother Louise and grandparents. Looking at the photo, Lyra lowered her eyes and put the photo frame down sadly. Stepping on the hard ground, she walked carefully through every familiar place according to the location in her dream, and finally found a crystal stone in the corner by accident. This should be a crystal that can play video data. Looking at the long diamond crystal in front of her, Leela inserted the crystal into the Kryptonian device in the Fortress of Solitude. A video data was immediately projected in the air. "Hey, Leela, it's me." The image of Louise appeared, and Leela was stunned. "Okay, I know you are surprised. This is what I said to you in the future. Although you are not born yet, I know you must be a girl. My intuition is always accurate." Louise stroked her belly and said with a smile. Leela immediately understood that this was a video that Louise recorded for her future child in advance after she learned that she was pregnant. "You must be a kind and beautiful girl with eyes like mine. This is 100% true. I inherited my mother's eyes, Leela, and I believe you are the same." Louise in the image seemed to see Leela and looked in her direction. "As a mother, I want to tell you, Leela, that you may encounter setbacks in your life, and you may doubt yourself, you know? Sometimes I also doubt myself. When I experience some major changes in my life, I wonder if I should exist and what my meaning is. At this time, my mother will touch my head and tell me that you are yourself, Louise, and God must have sent you to me for a reason. I want to say, Leela, God must have a reason to send you to me." Louise's eyes were full of tenderness. "Leela, I hope you are full of compassion and mercy, because that is where your strength lies. When you overcome your own fear and decide to save strangers above the clouds, that will be when you find your own meaning. Always have a loving heart. I love you, Leela." As Louise finished her last sentence, the video image turned off. After listening to Louise's words, Leela lowered her eyebrows and looked down with tears in her eyes. If her father could find this video after Louise's death, he probably wouldn't have taken that path. What Louise hoped for her husband and daughter was that they would always have sympathy and compassion and overcome their fears. Unfortunately, fate was such a cruel arrangement. Holding the crystal in her hand, she mourned the fickleness of fate. Gotham. Late at night. The Flash's hands were tied behind his back, and he slowly walked into the car that was escorting him. Injustice Batman looked at him with a heavy heart. Barry, you don't have to do this. Barry had finally turned back and helped him defeat the government forces. Injustice Batman did not treat Barry as a criminal. But Barry decided to accept the trial himself. No, I made a mistake. If I don't do this, I won't be able to get through my own level. Everyone who makes a mistake must be punished. Bruce, this is what should be done. Order and law should examine all of us. Barry smiled at him. Goodbye, I hope we will meet again. After looking at his old friend, Barry turned around and walked into the car that was escorting him. Barry, seeing the car was about to drive away, Batman called him. We will definitely meet again. Barry nodded, turned around, and the car slowly drove away. Walking towards the temporary base, Injustice Batman was in a heavy mood. Just after taking 2 steps, he ran into Leela, who came back. Who are you? Batman looked at Leela dressed as Superman in shock. I'm Leela, Superman's daughter. Leela stretched out her hand to Batman. Uncle Bruce, you have become a little younger. Leela. Batman shook hands with the other party in a daze. How could he not know about such a person? To be honest, I haven't seen what you looked like before you got out of prison. Uncle Bruce. Batman, when have I ever been in prison? I have always sent criminals from Gotham to prison, but I have never experienced the taste of a cage myself. At this time, Bruce didn't know that Leela compared himself in the dream world with him. Ahem, you said you are Clark's daughter. Well, Peter Padrick is my grandfather. Leela said something that shocked Injustice Batman again. When did Superman's daughter grow up so big? And she still calls Peter grandpa. You are not Loki. He knew that Loki, Peter's son, could do such mischievous magic. Chapter 356 Clark, you are laughing like a fool. Loki? No, of course I'm not. I'm myself, Leela said confidently, but no one can imitate me. But this is impossible. I saw Lois die with my own eyes. Superman lost his world. Unjust Batman's eyes were full of disbelief. You can't be his daughter. Maybe. I'm the girl who survived in another F-world line. Leela was a little melancholy, and a trace of sadness flashed in her eyes. She said to Batman, also, he didn't lose his world. His world is still here. He suffered a terrible tragedy. I feel sorry for him, although all this can't be an excuse for what he did. Standing in the corridor, Leela's thoughts extended to the distance. She had a better understanding of the dispute between unjust Superman and Batman. Uncle Bruce, I can see your approach, not killing people. You have your principles, but I also see your excessive concern. You want to make everyone on Earth indestructible, but he is not you. After Leela finished speaking, the air fell into silence. Batman stared at her for a long time without saying a word. What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? Uncle Bruce, you sound like Lois when you talk. Batman's heart was stirred. Clark fights for the truth, and Lois practices the truth. After talking to Leela, he turned around and planned to find Peter to find out the identity of this self-proclaimed Superman's daughter. Walking in the corridor with heavy steps, he thought of the night 5 years ago. That night was as long as today's night. 5 years ago. Under the night of Metropolis. He punched the sturdy man who was approaching, and then rolled on the ground, and used the bat dart to knock the gun out of the gangster's hand. Bang! The moment the gun in the gangster's hand was knocked away, Batman instantly swung his cape and flew over, and his iron fist hit the opponent's chin heavily. With a bang, the gangster who was hit hard fell to the ground and fainted. Why did you come to Metropolis? After Batman dealt with all the gangsters, the voice of the unjust Superman sounded behind him. Looking back, he found Superman leaning against the wall, his hands folded across his chest, smiling and watching the show. I'm on my way to the Star Technology Laboratory. A sensitive item has been stolen. Superman put his hands down, walked towards him and said, you could have told me, Bruce, I can help you solve it. Before Batman could finish his words, there was a burst of chaotic footsteps outside. Quick, don't let him get away, it's Batman. Kill him. Hearing the voice coming from outside, Superman shook his head. When you're done, we'll meet upstairs. After a few minutes, when Batman had dealt with all the strong men, he walked up to the rooftop. You're a little slow this time, Bruce. Batman smiled and walked towards him. No, it's not me who's slow, Clark, it's your heart that's too fast. The unjust Superman was a little embarrassed to be exposed by Batman. He glanced at the city at night and changed the subject by saying, "I have good news for you, Bruce." Before he could tell him what the good news was, Bruce said directly, "Louise is pregnant, isn't she, Superman?" After a long pause, he looked at his best partner in disbelief. "What's wrong with you?" He didn't even say it, but the other party knew it. Batman walked up to him, put his hand on the fence, and looked at the city at night. "You are sweating, your pupils are dilated, and your left hand is shaking. You usually don't show any body language because of nervousness or fear. The last time I saw you so terrified was when you were facing Doomsday, and the possibility of Doomsday was very small, because," listening to Batman's reasoning, Superman's mouth corners gradually rose. Batman turned around while speaking. He saw the smile on the other's face and couldn't help but complain, "You are laughing like a fool." Although he complained that Superman was like a fool, he was also secretly happy for him in his heart. He understood this emotion. When he knew that Damian was his child, he felt the same as Clark now, right? Although he was happy for Superman, he kept a straight face and pretended his feelings. The two stood together and looked at the night view for a long time without speaking. The night breeze blew over, and the two felt similarly beautiful. "We hope you can be the godfather of the child." After a while, Superman suddenly said something that stunned Batman. "What?" Seeing Batman's loss of composure, the Injustice Superman smiled. "Hey, look, our world's greatest detective will also be surprised." Teased by Superman, Batman coughed unnaturally and cast his eyes on the streets of the city. Superman did not continue to joke with him. He crossed his arms and the cape behind him rustled. "I can hear the child's heartbeat, Bruce." On the edge of the rooftop, Superman's heart was filled with happiness. Batman did not speak. He leaned against the fence, and a smile unconsciously appeared on his originally serious face. Everything was so beautiful, like a dream. Until Lois's heartbeat stopped. Then the whole world gradually began to collapse. In the corridor, the heavy-footed Injustice Batman took back his thoughts. He missed the city of tomorrow and the man of yesterday. A man of tomorrow who carried ideals and hopes appeared in front of him in an incredible way. He stopped and stood still. "Godfather." In the conference room, Peter had returned, and Bruce sat next to him. The two were whispering something. As the two were talking, Injustice Batman walked in. "It doesn't feel good to send your friend away, right?" Peter raised his head and asked the other party with his eyebrows moving. "Barry made this choice himself." Injustice Bat sat down and asked Peter, "What's wrong with Layla?" Hearing his question, Bruce's ears next to him also stood up. He was also curious about how Peter would explain. "She was born from sleep, the flower of hope." Peter was silent for a moment and explained to him the dream that Injustice Superman had once had. Hearing that in the dream, he defeated the Joker with one punch for Superman, Injustice Bat's expression was a little complicated. No matter how far the two fought, Clark actually hoped that he would stand up and take some responsibility for him. Perhaps Lyra was right. He should have hoped that everyone on Earth would become indestructible. If he had been more understanding and patient, and sat down to have a good talk with Clark. The thoughtful Injustice Bat began to truly reflect on his behavior. "She is really Superman's daughter. I didn't expect it." After whispering to himself, Injustice Bat said to Peter, "Perhaps it is a bit heavy for Lyra to take on these things that she shouldn't bear right from the start in this world, but I will announce to the outside world that Lyra was born before Lois died, but Superman didn't know. Now that Superman is imprisoned and Lyra appears, I think people will gradually accept her, because at the beginning, Superman represents hope, and hope should not be cut off forever." Not a bad idea. Peter didn't plan to bring Lyra back to his world now, and Lyra herself might not want to. Helping to rebuild the world here can temper Lyra and help her grow. When the time is right, he will take her back. After talking to Injustice Batman for a few words, Peter and Bruce were ready to leave. "Wait," Injustice Batman called Bruce. "Bruce, maybe we can talk." Bruce stopped and looked at Peter, who nodded slightly. Of course. After Peter left, Injustice Batman took off his helmet and placed it on the conference table. He raised his tired eyes and asked Bruce, "When are you leaving?" "I don't know, but it will be soon. After all the things here have been resolved." Bruce sat opposite. "You will probably be busy." Injustice Bat shook his head. "It shouldn't be too busy. I won't be needed too much in the transitional government. The people must know that it is them, not us, who are in power." Bruce sighed slightly. "In fact, you haven't changed much. Crime and corruption will return, and the world will still be the same as before. It won't be worse." Injustice Batman looked at him. "Anyway, Bruce, thank you for your help, and Peter. If it weren't for you, we couldn't solve all this. No, you should thank the Godfather. He is willing to help me with my unrealistic ideas." I pulled him in. He didn't want to participate. Listening to Bruce's words, Injustice Bat looked at him in surprise. "When did Peter become your godfather?" Bruce shrugged and said, "A long time ago, probably when we eradicated the Court of Owls together. If Clark and I had a godfather like Patrick, maybe things wouldn't have come to this point." Facing Bruce, his other self, he began to reflect on his own behavior. "Bruce, I hope you will never be like me, stubborn and immersed in your own world. If I had sat down at the beginning, if I had been willing to understand what he was thinking, perhaps things would not have developed to this point." The Injustice Bat said to him in a bleak tone, "Learn from my lessons, Bruce, and be more patient with Clark and your world when he goes down the wrong path. He may be Superman, but I think his heart is as vulnerable as all of us." Bruce faced the Injustice Bat, was silent for a while, and said, "I will, but if he really dares to act recklessly like Superman in our world, I will go over and deal with him." The Injustice Bat said something that made Bruce smile. "I will pass your words to Clark." Chapter 357 Why do prisoners act like trapped beasts? An hour later. Click. 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 After Injustice Batman finished talking with Bruce, he came to the corridor where Injustice Superman was imprisoned. In the Red Sun radiation room, the imprisoned Superman raised his head and saw Batman standing in front of him. "What? Come to show me your success?" Superman looked at him gloomily. "No, I just want to talk to you, Clark." "Talk to me?" "Bruce, there is no need for us to talk to each other for a long time. You are still so stubborn, Clark. The war is over." Superman slammed his hands heavily on the glass. "Stubborn? The people I killed never repented. They were all thieves, rapists, murderers, like the Joker. This is a fight for justice and truth. Bruce, you should understand that the war will never end, even if you lock me up here." Injustice Superman originally wanted to apologize to Bruce. He had realized that the path he had taken was wrong, and began to reflect on his original intention and his previous behavior. He originally wanted to apologize to Bruce, but seeing the other's expression, he couldn't help but start arguing with him. Bruce looked at him seriously. "Is it all over if we kill them all? First the Joker, then Gotham, and then you want to destroy Metropolis and Gotham? How long do you want to stop?" Batman originally wanted to admit his past mistakes to the unjust Superman, but he was completely enraged when he saw that the other was so stubborn. Facing Batman's questioning, Superman put his hand down and glared at him. "When crime is completely extinct, when people don't have to live in fear, our goals are the same, Bruce." Batman's tone also became excited, and he raised his voice. "Really? Clark, do you know how I spend my life? I want to kill the murderer who killed my parents. I can do it, but this is not the life they want me to live, nor is it the life that Lois wants you to live. Absolutely not." After saying this, both of them fell into silence and stopped talking. After a while, Batman took out a diamond crystal. "This is what Leela gave me. When she knew I would come to see you, she asked me to bring it to you." Hearing Batman's words, Injustice Superman was stunned. Leela. Hearing his daughter's name, the anger in Superman's eyes gradually dissipated, and he gradually calmed down. He dropped his hands helplessly. After Injustice Batman glanced at him, he opened the video data in the crystal. Lois's figure appeared in front of her again. Looking at the voice, appearance and smile of his lover, Injustice Superman's eyes were instantly filled with tears. Your compassion, your pity, these are the greatest strengths in your heart. When you choose to face your greatest fear in order to help strangers, this is the moment when you find the meaning of your life. Looking at the familiar face of Lois in the video, the other party's last words were like a gentle dagger, piercing the iron stone in his heart. He lowered his eyebrows and eyes, tears were shining, and he murmured and couldn't say a word. Lila said that she found it in the Fortress of Solitude. Lila and Lois sincerely hope that one day you can find a better way. Clark, they hope that you can reflect on what you have done and hope that you can change. Bruce closed the video data and said to Superman with mixed feelings, "Everyone expects you to change." The unjust Superman, who was hit by a huge emotional shock, raised his head and suppressed his surging emotions. "Bruce, everything started from me. I know what I have done and what kind of road I have taken, but everything can't be turned back. We can't turn back." His tone was no longer as angry as before. "I apologize to you, Bruce. Whether it is Alfred, Green Arrow, or Shazam, the sins I have committed are irreparable. Batman listened to Superman's apology and remained silent. He didn't know how to respond to the other party's confession. After a while, he said to the other party, "Clark, we all made mistakes at the beginning. If I could be more patient with you at the beginning, or I helped you." Batman suddenly thought of the dream of Superman that Peter told him. In the dream, he killed the Joker for Clark and was willing to go to jail. No matter from which aspect, what Clark wanted was for him to be his support in his confusion and pain, not a tough opponent. "I'm sorry, Clark. I was stubborn at that time and never thought that fate would lead us here." Hearing Batman apologize to him, Superman was slightly stunned. This was the first time he heard an apology from Batman in 5 years. The thick barrier between the two seemed to be dissolved a little. Superman thought of the scenes when he and Batman were comrades in arms and fought side by side. "I remember that night, we were chatting on the rooftop, and I mentioned that Lois was pregnant." Unjust Superman thought of the night when all the tragedies started. He and Batman began to chat in the way they used to be old friends. "I remember," Batman nodded with a heavy heart. "Remember what I said at the beginning? I want you to be the godfather of this child." "Godfather? Yes, have you forgotten?" "No, I will never forget." Batman raised his head and looked at the dark night outside, with a trace of pain in his eyes. Superman raised his head and looked at him with complicated eyes. "Bruce, I hope you can be Leela's godfather now. Take care of her outside, let her become a kind person, don't let her get lost, and don't let her be weak." Hearing Superman asking him to be Leela's godfather, the unjust Batman's expression fell into a moment of dullness. Looking at Superman's serious and expectant eyes, he finally nodded. "I will, Clark. I will teach Leela as my child." "Very good. After so many years, we finally have the same view on one thing." Superman nodded. "Leela's matter is left to you." Batman turned around with mixed feelings and prepared to leave. But he suddenly remembered something and asked Superman again, "Who is Peter Padrick? Why did he create Lyra? This is no longer a human power." Hearing Batman mention Peter, Superman was stunned for a moment and said hesitantly, "I don't know. In my dream, he became my godfather. Maybe he is really a dream maker who can create beautiful and impossible dreams." Dream maker. Hearing the new title given to Peter by Superman, Batman fell into deep thought. In Bruce's temporary base, Peter took Azu, Star-Lord, Loki and others to say goodbye to the people in the world of injustice. Kara went to Paradise Island before, stopped the Amazon army, and captured Wonder Woman alive. At present, Wonder Woman has been in prison with the Green Lantern, Cyborg, Hawkgirl, Damian and others. Looking at the black-haired and heroic Supergirl standing in front of her, Kara felt a little jealous. Obviously, she is the spokesperson of Supergirl. Now that a younger Supergirl has appeared, she feels a lot of pressure. She said her last name is Padrick. "Don't tell me. Peter, she is also your daughter." In view of Raven's sudden appearance, Kara now wondered if this Supergirl named Leela appeared next to Peter for the same reason as Raven. "Actually, Leela should be considered my daughter by blood, but she can also call me Grandpa, because some of her characteristics come from her other parents." "Grandpa." Hearing Peter asking Leela to call him Grandpa, Kara fell into a daze. Then she looked at Peter with some suspicion. "Do you have any special fetishes?" "No, of course not. As for why, that's a long story. I'm waiting for you to explain it to me, Peter. After all, she is too much like me, which can't help but make me think wildly." Peter looked at her in surprise. "What would you think wildly? You don't think she is related to you, do you?" Kara could hear the teasing in Peter's words, and glared at him angrily and stopped talking. Azu, who was standing by, eavesdropped on the conversation between his father and Kara. He felt a little depressed. After all, Raven was still young and posed no threat to her. But now a guy named Padrick suddenly appeared. Moreover, this girl was very powerful. She defeated Aquaman in a flash and snatched away his trident. Azu changed his target again and regarded Leela as the one who posed the greatest threat to him. "Don't forget to contact me if there is any emergency." Peter didn't know what Azu was thinking. He hugged Unjust Raven and said to her, "I will, Dad." Unjust Raven whispered in Peter's ear, in a voice that only the two of them could hear. Then Peter shook hands with Unjust Batman, Lex Luthor. Finally, he walked to Leela. Leela's eyes were filled with uncontrollable sadness. "Grandpa, can we talk alone?" "Of course." Peter took her to a corner where no one was. "Okay, Leela, let's do it here." Aye. Leela, who was unable to speak with her lips trembling, threw herself into Peter's arms in excitement. "I'm sorry, Grandpa. I can't go back with you yet. This world still needs me. I will go back when the people in this world are no longer afraid of the mark on my chest and when everything is quiet here. I will stay with you forever." Feeling the girl's body trembling in his arms, Peter reached out and hugged her gently. "Don't worry, Grandpa will always be waiting for you. Don't forget, I can travel through this world at any time," Peter whispered to comfort her. By the way, there is something very important. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 358 Azu, she said all my words. Lyra suddenly remembered something, left Peter's arms, wiped the tears from her face, activated her super speed, and disappeared in front of Peter in an instant. Peter was confused and hadn't figured out what happened. The next second, Lyra flew in front of Peter with a weapon. "What is this?" Peter stared at the weapon in Lyra's hand. What was in front of him was the weapon of Aquaman, the trident. "Grandpa, this is a gift from me to you. Maybe you will need it in the future. Azu, you gave it to me." "Yes, I want to put my thoughts and feelings on it. If Grandpa misses me, maybe he can think of me by looking at it." Lyra's blue eyes were full of tenderness and expectation. "No, it's better for you to keep it here, Lyra." Peter gently stroked Lyra's short black hair with his hand. "You may need it more than me. Besides, the emotions between us don't need to be connected by it." Peter pointed his finger at Lyra's chest. Lyra could feel the beating heart, as if all the emotions were connected to Peter. As long as our hearts are always connected, we can feel each other's emotions, no matter how far away we are. Peter glanced at Azu and the others who were waiting for him, and then said to Leela, "I have to go. Leela, remember, contact me directly if you have anything." "I will, Grandpa, I love you." Leela reluctantly hugged Peter again, whispering to him, "I love you too, Leela." In the open space outside the temporary base, Peter opened a portal. The purple rotating portal with a misty breath appeared in front of everyone. Peter held the reluctant little raven, waved to everyone, and entered the portal. After that, Azu, Clark, Vixen, Star-Lord, Loki and Kara, the Queen of the Underworld and others entered the portal one after another. After everyone left, Injustice Batman and Lex looked at each other. "Let's go, we still have a lot to do." Looking at the slowly disappearing portal, Batman felt a sense of loss in his heart and turned to leave. At the same time, in the distant space, many spaceships are heading towards the Earth of the Injustice world. Inside the cabin of the main spaceship, a green-skinned alien with a mechanical device covering his upper body was looking at the model of the Earth on the monitor. "The Earth is really interesting. It is both beautiful and full of filth. The contradictions in it are really fascinating." He stretched out a mechanical hand from behind and operated on the monitor. The more precise details of the enlarged Earth appeared on the screen. Although Krypton has been destroyed, a Kryptonian escaped from Krypton. "This is something I cannot tolerate. This Kryptonian. He must belong to me." The alien looked at the Earth in front of him and whispered to himself. The green-skinned alien with a strong aura, his real name is Brainiac. He is an artificial intelligence created by Comet, but after subsequent self-evolution and replication, he not only controlled the scientists of this planet, but also conquered the entire planet. In the process of continuous upgrading, he not only evolved his own abilities, but also evolved his own greed, jealousy, and hatred. After ruling his own planet Comet, it traveled through, conquered, and destroyed one planet after another, including Superman's hometown Krypton. It liked to collect cities, shrink them, collect them, and observe their actions. Brainiac had taken away countless civilized cities, and those civilizations that he considered worthless were ruthlessly destroyed. At this time, Brainiac in outer space had noticed that one person had escaped from the Krypton he destroyed and lived on Earth. In order to capture the Kryptonian and to take the Earth as his own trophy, Brainiac decided to go to Earth. Batman, Lyra and others in Gotham City at this time did not know that another greater crisis was waiting for them. Padwick Farm. Peter finally returned with his family. Exhaling a breath, McBee lay comfortably on the sofa, allowing her tired spirit to relax. Only when she returned to the farm would she feel completely relaxed. "Did you fight the Atlanteans in Gotham before?" Kara asked her curiously. "Are you injured?" Otherwise, why are you so tired? No, I'm just mentally exhausted. You know that world is too depressing. The air is full of anxiety and conflict. Compared with it, I still prefer our world. At least here, Clark won't go crazy and suddenly want to rule the world, McBee said, looking at Clark, who was carrying things upstairs. Clark, who was seen by her, felt a little guilty. After all, in the future, or in another world line, his behavior may be as unforgivable as that of Injustice Superman. In addition, although Injustice Superman wanted to control the entire world in his way and let the world run in his way, he did not do anything to hurt his family. Although it seems that all his family members are gone. But that's not the point. The point is that he actually wanted to do something to the Godfather, strangled Loki to death, and injured Raven. Compared with Injustice Superman, he seems to be worse. No, he won't. Kara clenched her fists and said to Clark, if Clark really goes crazy like that Superman, I will beat him to pulp. Clark, you'd better listen to your cousin. Clark, he hasn't done anything yet, but why is there another warning from the Injustice Batman? Bruce repeated the threat of the Injustice Bat to him on the way, and another threat from his cousin's Iron Fist. Okay, I'll try to be obedient. Clark didn't want to talk to this group of people who hurt his heart. After moving his things upstairs, he planned to go to the Godfather for psychological counseling in the evening. He needed the Godfather to enlighten him, otherwise he wouldn't be able to sleep at night. Seeing Clark running away, Kara put her hand down with regret. Sitting on the sofa, squeezing together with a female fox, she said a little sullenly, there's a very important thing on this trip that I didn't complete. What is it? McBee asked curiously. Beat up Clark in that world, McBee. She doubted Kara's strength and whether she could deal with the Injustice Superman. After all, that was the guy who suppressed countless superheroes and made the whole world tremble. If it weren't for Peter, the pervert, I guess everyone on my side couldn't subdue that guy. Why are you looking at me like that? Don't you believe it? Kara, who felt that she was looked down upon, immediately stood up and boasted to the vixen, do you know how I fought Wonder Woman? I sent her to Jupiter. Although she has the speed of Hermes and the power of the gods, I am faster. She didn't react until we flew over Jupiter. The vixen became interested in the battle between Kara and the Injustice Wonder Woman, and she continued to ask, then what? After that, we arrived at Titan, a satellite of Saturn, and she still attacked me. In the denser atmosphere, the sound of my chin being hit was louder, and her voice was louder, but in the end I won, and her chin was hit by my more violent punch. Kara proudly talked about her battle with the Injustice Wonder Woman. McBee was about to continue asking when Peter's voice rang out outside. Mary, it's time to go to work. What work? McBee asked unhappily when his interest was suddenly interrupted. Cooking. If you don't cook, I'll do it myself. Hearing that Peter was going to cook by himself, she immediately sobered up after having eaten Peter's dark cuisine. Okay, I'll go right away. McBee took action immediately to prevent Peter from cooking. Gotham, night. After saying goodbye to Peter, Bruce finally rushed back to Wayne Manor. Seeing that the young master finally returned, Alfred immediately came up to him excitedly. Young master, welcome home. Well, it's nice to meet you, Alfred. Bruce came up and hugged his butler intimately. Sensing that Bruce was a little strange, Alfred asked him doubtfully, Master, are you okay? I'm fine, but it feels like time has passed a long time. As if we haven't seen each other for a long time. I'm here, Master. We haven't seen each other for just a few days. I know. Bruce smiled at him. The faraway place I went to, the Wayne Manor, without your presence, made me feel that time has passed especially long. He thought of Alfred in the Injustice world. In the first year, Injustice Batman sneaked into Superman's Fortress of Solitude and brought back the Superman pill. Just as Batman returned to the Batcave to analyze the pill, Superman broke in, thinking that Batman had betrayed him, and the two immediately fought. Injustice Batman was no match for Superman. After a few moves, Superman used the same broken back kill as Bane. The angry Alfred saw that Batman had a broken back, so he took the Superman pill and beat Superman up, causing the opponent to bleed from his nose and look miserable. You have to learn to adapt, Master. One day I won't be by your side. Unknown to Alfred, Bruce thought of Alfred's deeds in another world. I don't hope that day will ever come. Putting down his luggage, Bruce said to the butler, Alfred, make me a cup of coffee. I may have stayed up late today. Stay up late? But, Master, you need to rest. No, I don't, at least not now. I got a lot of information from that world, And I need to verify the possibility in existence in this world. A trace of solemnity flashed in Bruce's eyes. Chapter 359 Blind Clark. Late at night. Alfred came up with coffee. Master, maybe you need to take a break. You don't have to be so tense. We are not at war now. Bruce turned around and said, since my parents died, Alfred, I have been fighting. Alfred put his hands behind his back and asked him, so how is the current progress of your war? Operating the computer in front of him, Bruce replied to the butler, whatever you say, Alfred, I am improving, but the progress is still too slow. I'm not strong enough, not yet, not as strong as I am in another world. Excuse me, Master. Alfred put the cold coffee, which Bruce had not tasted, on the tray, and then put new coffee on the table. You shouldn't compare yourself with others. You're right, but that's not someone else. It's me in another world. Bruce continued, in the world of injustice, I saw the need to form the Justice League. Perhaps, our world also needs it. Justice League. Yes, a superhero team. Then you should bring in the whole family of Padraic, and you can't accomplish it without the support of Padraic. Alfred made his own suggestion. Of course, Bruce nodded. Flash, Green Lantern, Cyborg, Aquaman. I already have the information of these people, as well as the Godfather's family. I have to put this plan on the agenda. He has already prepared to develop a 24-hour monitoring system to monitor these future superheroes to ensure that nothing unexpected happens. Of course, he also has to prepare some backups. Once these people get out of control like Injustice Superman, he also has countermeasures. Pondering, he took out an electronic chip. What is this, Master? Alfred asked him curiously. Lex Luthor's product in Star Labs. I mean, Lex Luthor in another world. He invented a device to observe parallel worlds. Before leaving the world of injustice, Bruce went to Star Labs and visited Lex's parallel world observation device. Here is the data about the parallel world observation device. I can create a completely identical device. Bruce told his idea to the butler. This is not a simple project, young master. I know. Bruce put down the electronic chip. This is a long-term plan, so I need your support more. I will support you, young master. But are you sure you don't need to rest? My body should be able to hold on. Bruce stared at the monitor in front of him, and he thought of the dream he had before. In the dream, he saw Clark's rebellion, Raven's obstruction, and Mark's outburst. Will Mark exist in a parallel world? Perhaps he can use the parallel world observation device to see relevant clues in other worlds. In this way, he can stop Clark and protect the Godfather. The next day, early in the morning, Peter just got up and received a call from Teacher Martha McConaughey. Is that Peter? It's me, Teacher Martha. Peter didn't expect the other party to call him. Great, I went to your house a few days ago and wanted to talk to you, but there was no one at the farm. I took John and the others on a trip a few days ago. Sorry, Teacher Martha, what's up? No, it's not very important. Martha's tone was a little unnatural. John and Clark haven't come to school for several days. I'm worried that they have encountered something. So, although she said it was for John and Clark's questions, she actually wanted to ask about her own situation. Her appearance has not changed at all in so many years. Although having eternal youth is an ability that all women envy. She is a little flustered. If she doesn't get older, she won't be able to stay in school. You sound a little anxious, Teacher Martha. Peter put the microphone to his other ear and thanked Persephone, who brought him a cup of coffee. Yes, I have some questions, Martha said hesitantly. Through Clark, she knew more about Peter's family situation. She knew that although Peter was not married, there were several young women in his family. She didn't know whether she should tell him. We can make an appointment to talk. Peter was also going to deal with Clark and Zoo's leave. Although he was now a school director, the two had fallen behind in their courses, which was not a problem that the school director could solve. Instead, he could ask Teacher Martha to help with the lessons. Noon. Talent Club. Peter saw Teacher Martha, who looked almost exactly the same as when they first met. With her blonde hair and delicate features, Martha attracted the attention of many people in the club. Hey, Peter. Martha stepped forward and greeted Peter. Hello, Teacher Martha. Peter looked at her. Long time no see, Teacher Martha. You haven't changed much? Thank you. I'll take this as a compliment. Martha smiled and sat down. After the two talked about Clark and Zoo's academic courses for a while, Martha hesitated and asked Peter, Can I ask you a question, Peter? Of course, Peter said with his eyebrows moving. Martha whispered to him, Are you a god? Peter was stunned for a moment. Why do you ask? You gave me this ability to stay young forever. I can't think of any other explanation except that you are a god. Martha frowned and looked tangled. If you are really a god, can you help me cover it up? Although I have made myself look much older with makeup, it doesn't seem to work. In addition, because of her appearance, she dared not go on a date. She was afraid that her youthful appearance would be taken away and she would become a middle-aged woman and scare people. Martha told Peter about her distress. Listening to her words, Peter stroked his chin and fell into deep thought. Martha was originally affected by the world tree on the farm when Loki was born. Peter had checked her situation before. Martha now has an energy similar to the world tree in her body. Perhaps this is the reason why she stays young forever. According to the closeness of the other party to the world tree, she can become Loki's exclusive teacher. This naughty kid doesn't go to school and is idle on the farm every day. Now there is a legitimate reason to consume this kid's excess energy. That's a problem indeed, Peter thought for a moment and said to her, but I know a little bit about makeup, which can make you look a little more mature. Unlike Loki's use of illusion to change a person's appearance, Peter can use rune magic to do this. Really? Martha looked at her with surprise. Of course, Peter nodded. But, what's the price? Martha asked uneasily. She wasn't stupid enough to believe that Peter was really using makeup. No, there's no price, but John and Clark's studies need your help, and Loki. Peter told her about Loki. After hearing what Peter said, Martha's expression was a little complicated. Was this asking her to become Peter's family tutor? But she had no choice. Anyway, she had been tied to Peter for a long time. Clark was talking to Lena on the street next to the Talon Club, and saw Peter sitting and chatting with teacher Martha in the club. What are you looking at, Clark? Lena's voice rang out next to her. Nothing. Clark, who was stunned for a moment, turned his gaze over and smiled at Lena. The two were standing outside a jewelry store. Lena nodded and asked him, you said you went to a far-away place before. Yes, very far away, a place full of war and fear, completely different from the atmosphere of a small town. Clark thought of the scenes in the world of injustice, and felt a little heavy. He looked through the glass and cast his eyes on the jewelry in the jewelry store. Lana was silent for a moment and said to him, we can't avoid facing a more realistic world. Seeing that Clark's eyes were always fixed on the jewelry, she asked curiously, are you looking for a special gift? My mother's birthday is coming soon, and I want to pick a gift for her. That sounds good. Lana looked at her watch, but sorry, Clark, I have to go. See you later. See you later. Clark said goodbye to her. After watching Lana's back disappear, Clark entered the store. At the same time, a convertible sports car stopped outside, and two men got out of the car. The last time Martha came, she tried this. Inside the store, the owner handed a ring to Clark. Has she tried any under $1,000? Clark looked at the price and asked a little embarrassedly. The older boss laughed and said to him, yes, some exquisite jewelry designed by local designers has just arrived. It's very special and comes from the sky. The boss put a green, beautifully carved ring in front of Clark. Clark, the boss started to move, and Clark immediately felt a wave of weakness. With a creak, the door was pushed open. A young man with blonde hair who had just gotten out of the convertible sports car stood in the middle of the room, took a deep breath, and whistled a sharp sound towards everyone. The customer attacked by the sound wave immediately covered his ears and fell to the ground. The high decibel sound wave directly shattered the glass of the counter. At the same time as being attacked by the sound wave. Bang! The door was kicked open, and another person who got out of the convertible entered the jewelry store with a gun. Don't move. The moment he saw the gunman appear, Clark endured the discomfort and immediately activated his thermal vision to destroy the other party's gun. But as the glass burst into the air, the green kryptonite jewelry was hit by the thermal vision. A green light flashed in front of Clark. The gun in the gangster's hand was instantly blown away. But Clark also covered his eyes and fell to the ground with a plop, groaning in pain. Chapter 360 Azu, who said that if you have super hearing you don't need eyes? The young man who emitted the high-frequency sound waves saw Clark's heat vision destroying the gun, and immediately fled outside in panic. His accomplice with a gun was about to run away with him, but the shop owner, who had reacted, had already picked up a shotgun and pointed it at him. Pointed at by the shotgun, he immediately raised his hands obediently. Talon Club. Peter was chatting with teacher Martha, and when he heard the sudden scream, he immediately turned his head. His sight immediately caught the scene in the jewelry store. What's wrong? Martha saw Peter's frown and asked him. Excuse me. Peter nodded slightly to her, quickly pushed the door and left the club. After walking out, he activated his super speed to move outside the jewelry store. Coming in and helping Clark, who fell to the ground, Peter asked him, "Are you okay, Clark? I can't see with my eyes." Hearing Peter's voice, Clark's fear was immediately dispelled. But he still said to Peter in panic, "Godfather, I can't see anything. I'm here, Clark." Peter held Clark's hand in a panic. "Don't worry, I'm here." Listening to Peter's comfort, Clark finally calmed down and stopped groping around. Teacher Martha heard the sound and rushed to the scene. After seeing the mess at the scene and Clark's closed eyes, she covered her mouth in surprise. After reacting, she immediately took out her mobile phone from her bag and called the emergency number. 10 minutes later, the town's central hospital. The Kent couple, who heard about Clark's accident, rushed to the scene in a hurry. "Peter, what's wrong with Clark?" Martha asked Peter anxiously. The doctor said it was a retinal burn, and Clark can't see clearly for the time being. Peter briefly told the couple about Clark's condition. Jonathan stood outside the ward and looked at Clark, who was being examined by the doctor. "After Clark is examined, we have to take Clark back," Jonathan gave his suggestion. Hearing her husband say this, Martha looked at him in surprise. "Jonathan, Clark is injured now, he needs the doctor's treatment, but Clark's secret cannot be discovered by others." You can see how confused the doctor's expression is now. Martha refuted her husband in an excited tone. "No, it's not confusion, Jonathan, you are restricting him." Jonathan faced his wife and put his hand on her shoulder to calm her down. "Remember the doctor we trusted last time? He kept Clark's blood. If Peter hadn't helped, Clark's matter would have been exposed. Martha, we can't take this risk." Martha looked into her husband's eyes and said in an impatient tone, "But now Clark has lost his eyesight. We should take the risk of people knowing his secret." "Martha, you should understand that this is not Clark's secret, but his power that hurt him." Clark in the ward, although he couldn't see with his eyes, his hearing seemed to become unusually sensitive. The quarrel between his parents outside the room did not need him to catch it deliberately, and it was transmitted to his ears more clearly than before. "Don't worry, Martha." Jonathan, seeing that the quarrel between Martha and Jonathan was getting more and more intense, Peter had to stand up and said, "I may be able to help with Clark's matter." Peter said to the two of them seriously, "Take Clark out and let him live with me temporarily. I can help him recover every day. He has rune magic that can heal trauma, which should be helpful for Clark's eye recovery." Hearing what Peter said, the couple was stunned for a moment. Clark happened to come out with a doctor. After Jonathan and his wife exchanged a few words with the doctor and all the doctors left, Clark, who walked awkwardly like a blind man, walked in front of Peter and his parents. "I think I have a vote too, right? Dad, Mom, Godfather." Seeing her son come out, the distressed Martha immediately walked to Clark, held his hand, and looked at his red and swollen eyes. Feeling his mother's heartache, Clark gently put Martha's hand on his face and let his mother caress it. "Don't worry, Mom, it should be fine after a while." Martha's eyes were filled with tears. "But sweetheart, you may always be like this." Clark forced a smile on his face and comforted his mother. "There are many people in this world who face disability every day. What's the worst? Bumping into the wall when going to school? Believe me, Mom, it's nothing. Even if I can't see, I can hear your voice every day, and I believe that Godfather will make me better." Peter listened to Clark's sensible words, walked to him and comforted him. "Don't worry, Clark, I will heal you." "Well, I believe in you, Godfather." The next day, at school, Azu's arm grabbed Clark's hand wearing sunglasses, acting as his human crutch. "How is it? Dad used rune magic to treat you. Are you feeling better?" Azu asked Clark. "Much better. My eyes are no longer swollen and painful, and I feel very comfortable. I guess I should be able to recover in a few days," Clark said confidently. However, listening to noisy voices in the classroom corridor, Clark's confidence gradually disappeared. He whispered to Zu, "Everyone is looking at me, right? They just want to see through your sunglasses." Zu said something comforting. Clark listened to Zu's joke, the corners of his mouth slightly raised, and his mood became better. The two walked to the locker. Clark couldn't see, so he fumbled around on the locker, looking for his combination lock. Zu directly picked up the combination lock of Clark's locker. "Let me help you, I know your combination." Hearing this, Clark asked Zu in surprise, "You know my combination?" "I knew it when I was in the 3rd grade. Click." As soon as Zu finished speaking, Clark's combination lock was opened by him. "Clark, Zhu knew his own combination when he was in the 3rd grade. He wondered if Zhu knew all his secrets since the 3rd grade. Perhaps sensing the resentment emanating from Clark, Zhu coughed and explained, "I haven't opened your locker, nor have I seen the love letter you wrote to Lana." Clark was even more speechless when he heard him say that. "Since you have never opened my locker, how do you know that there is a love letter written to Lana but never sent out?" Clark was about to complain about Zhu's covering the truth when he heard the locker door being closed with a bang. Then there was the slight click of the combination lock, which sounded in his ears. Although the sound of the combination lock was subtle, it sounded as harsh as if it was amplified by a speaker. The chaotic footsteps, the speeding sound of cars on the street, and the loud or whispering voices of countless people all entered his ears. It seemed that his hearing had expanded further. Not only was it limited to the scope of the town, but he could hear sounds from farther areas. He could hear the roar of the plane taking off, the noise of customers in the bustling shopping mall, and the rumbling sound of the waterfall. His super hearing was enhanced several times, but the massive amount of information received in an instant made Clark's ears pierce. Ding-ling-ling, Clark was trying to shut off his hearing senses, but the harsh sound of the school bell aggravated his pain. Clark covered his ears and groaned in pain. Seeing that Clark seemed to be unstable, Zhu quickly supported him. "Clark, what's wrong?" "My ears, John, you have to take me back." Clark grabbed Zhu's arm and panted slightly. "I think there is something wrong with my body. Godfather may be able to help me." Seeing that Clark said he was not feeling well, Zhu did not stay in school and took him out of school directly. Peter was accompanying his daughter at Patrick's farm. Holding a Coke in one hand and holding little Raven in the other, he was watching his favorite cartoon with his daughter. Seeing the gorgeous magic of the rainbow pony, Raven's eyes opened wider. Zhu helped Clark in. Peter, who heard the sound, got up and put little Raven on the sofa. "What's wrong?" Seeing Clark covering his ears with a painful expression, Peter frowned and asked the two of them. Clark said he heard countless voices at the same time. Zhu explained to Peter, it was like someone was holding a loudspeaker next to his ear. All the sounds became louder, and then everything disappeared. "Is that so?" Peter confirmed with Clark. "Yes, that's right, Godfather. It happened suddenly." Clark's forehead was covered with fine sweat. Peter thought for a moment and said to him, "You have temporarily lost your eyesight, but your body is trying to compensate for you. Clark, your super hearing is now several times stronger. You can hear more sounds, and it is more chaotic." Clark groped for the sofa and sat down, exhaled and said to Peter, "I understand, Godfather. Those sounds are really too loud and chaotic. I don't even know where they come from or what they are. I even heard Lex's voice. He should be in Metropolis now. Just concentrate your mental power. Don't let those messy things disturb your mind. Clark, you can control your super hearing?" Peter came over to comfort him. "But I can't concentrate all my mental strength to fight against so many voices, Godfather. Although I could hear people's voices before, it was only limited to the relatively close places in this town. I could control it, but now I can't do it," Clark said to Peter in frustration. "How about this, you follow me?" Peter motioned Clark and Zhu to follow him. He wanted to give Clark special training. Chapter 361 The Greek Ragnarok begins. Barn. Peter asked Zhu to start the tractor and the lawn mower. The sound of boom, boom, boom suddenly rang out in the barn. Still feeling that it was not enough, Peter asked Zhu to turn on the belt conveyor. All kinds of mechanical sounds immediately echoed in the barn. The harsh noise immediately made Clark's expression painful. He covered his ears, but the amplified sound continued to echo in his ears, vibrating his eardrums. "John, go outside and talk, and use your weakest voice as much as possible," Peter said to Zhu next to him. Zhu nodded. "Okay, Dad." As Zhu, who developed faster than Clark, had already experienced this stage, so he didn't feel anything. It's just that his super hearing is gradually enhanced. After Clark became blind, his hearing suddenly became extremely powerful, which Zhu had never thought of. When Zhu walked back to the outside of the barn, Clark covered his ears, his body shook, and he seemed to be a little unstable. "Clark, can you hold on?" Peter looked at Clark's painful expression and wondered if he had set the difficulty too high at the beginning. "Yes, Godfather, I'm fine." Clark put his hand on Peter, supporting himself so that he wouldn't fall down. "I heard it. I heard John's voice." Trying to concentrate and block out other messy and useless sounds in his mind, he heard what Azu said to him outside. Although it was intermittent, the sound was soon covered by other mechanical sounds. "I did it, Godfather. Clark said excitedly to Peter. I can do it, Godfather. Of course, I know you can, Clark. Now continue, concentrate your mental power, and capture the sound you want to hear most. Peter pinched Clark's shoulder and said to him in the barn full of harsh noises. Clark nodded excitedly and continued to follow Peter's instructions, concentrating his mind to listen to what Azu said outside. Clark heard countless complicated voices, but he concentrated on listening to the most useful words that he wanted to hear the most. Suddenly, a familiar voice suddenly entered his hearing range. It seemed to be the voice of his parents. Jonathan, we need to consider asking someone to help. You look tired. I am worried about you. Mother Martha's words were full of worry. Father Jonathan's voice rang out, no, Martha, we don't have any extra money. It won't help if you are exhausted. Jonathan, who was slightly panting, seemed to pick up a glass of water and asked his mother, what are you doing? Apply to the Bureau of Education for the Disabled to arrange a special teacher for Clark. Hearing his mother say that she was going to apply for a special teacher for Clark, Jonathan put down the glass of water. Clark's counselor said that he can go to class normally. Until when? The mother's voice became a little excited. His life has changed, and so has yours. You both refuse to admit it. You are both stubborn. Jonathan, you are unwilling to accept Peter's help. I don't understand what you think. Peter is Clark's godfather. He is not an outsider. Seeing his wife's excitement, Jonathan wanted to speak, but Martha's voice covered him. Clark is no longer an omnipotent Superman. He needs to rely on others. Jonathan, you too, you have to start relying on others too. Bang! After saying that, Martha threw the pen in her hand on the table without waiting for Jonathan to speak, and left the living room. Ding! It happened that the nails on the conveyor belt were vibrated to the ground. And the crisp sound made Clark cover his ears and make a painful sound. Peter immediately turned off all the machines and supported Clark. Are you okay, Clark? I'm fine, Godfather, Clark said to Peter with a smile on his face. Take a rest first. Peter asked Clark to sit down and rest for a while, and asked Azuzu not to whisper. Sitting in the chair, Clark felt a little uncomfortable. His parents' quarrel just now affected his mood. Godfather, super hearing, is it that the more I hear, the more painful it will be, because I can always hear the voices that I don't want to hear? No, why do you say that, Clark? Peter sat down and asked him. I heard my parents quarrel. Yeah, Peter nodded. I guess it must be Martha who is quarreling with Jonathan, because Jonathan's stubbornness can really make people angry sometimes. Clark, he wanted to ask if his godfather sometimes used super hearing to eavesdrop on his parents' quarrels. But he felt that if he asked this, it would seem that he didn't trust his godfather, so he had to swallow the words. Clark, you have to understand that the stronger your super hearing becomes, the more different ideas you will hear from people. You will hear the noble people talking and the mean people whispering. You will hear the painful shouts and the joyful laughter. Peter's slowly speaking voice reached his ears. Because this is life, there are always too many helplessness in life. Clark, we are not God. We can't decide other people's fate. We can't change other people's lives. Listen to these different voices, absorb the useful ones, and then discard the useless ones, so that you can become stronger, instead of limiting yourself to entanglement and pain. This is what you should do, and I believe you can do it. Listening to Peter's words, Clark's inner haze was mostly dispelled. He took a deep breath and thanked Peter. Thank you, Godfather. I understand how I should deal with these voices. I'm glad you can figure it out. Peter stood up and prepared to go downstairs. By the way, Clark, talk to Jonathan when you have time. Don't be so stubborn. I am your godfather, and we should help each other, Peter said to Clark before going downstairs. Hearing Peter's words, Clark's whole person immediately felt bad. It turned out that the godfather also heard the quarrel between his parents. Farm, dinner time. Raven curiously observed Clark wearing sunglasses. Seeing Clark clumsily using a knife and fork to eat, she asked Clark in confusion, Clark, are you blind now? Oh, temporarily. That's pitiful. Raven, who is held by Kara, made a sympathetic voice. But, I will take care of you, and Fukin will take care of you too. Raven felt a little bad for Clark, but still said that she would take care of the blind. Fukin can be your guide bird. Oh, thank you, Raven, but it's not necessary. I have gradually begun to adapt to this state. Clark smiled at Raven. Or you can be a blind man, Loki next to him said to Clark. With super hearing, you no longer need supervision. Azu, who was eating bread, suddenly became unhappy with this sentence. He always felt that Loki was implying something. After dinner, Peter used the room to heal Clark's eyes for a while, and there was a knock on the door of the room. When he opened the door, he found that Person F was standing outside the door nervously. "Sir, I have something to tell you." Seeing Clark in the room, Person F hesitated and said, "How about changing the time?" No, Clark can't see anything. Clark, he felt that the Godfather's hell joke was a bit too lethal to him. Person F was amused by Peter's words. She adjusted her mood and said to Peter, "I want to tell you, sir, my premonition has been telling me that something big may happen recently." "What big thing?" "Something big about Olympus, or its severity is enough to overturn the entire Olympus and let the gods go to dusk." "Twilight of the gods," Peter whispered to himself and looked at the queen of the underworld with an uneasy face. "Is it related to Diana?" "I don't know, the inspiration just tells me a terrible future. Diana is also a member of the gods, and I think she should be among them." Person F said something that made Peter fall into deep thought. At the same time, in Antarctica, the sky was full of heavy snow, and the extremely cold environment enveloped the dark polar night. The deserted snowfield exuded a deathly silence. A few minutes later, a boom sound broke the silence of the polar night. Several snowmobiles drove on the glacier, and the bright lights pierced the darkness of the night. When they reached a glacier peak, the snowmobiles stopped. The members of the expedition team, who were wrapped tightly, got off the snowmobiles and walked to the top of the glacier in the wind and snow. "Doctor," the leader of the expedition team shouted loudly to the person walking in front, "You are right, this is our destination." The middle-aged man wearing gloves and holding a telescope shook his head. "No, I miscalculated, he was earlier than I calculated." As he said, he looked at the top of the glacier in front. A naked man with long hair standing in the snow. Although the environment was freezing, the strange thing was that the other party was not frozen. Crunch! Crunch! The doctor stepped on the snow and walked towards the strange man. "Wait, doctor, we're not ready yet, don't go over there yet." Seeing the doctor walking straight ahead, the team leader hurriedly stopped him. But the doctor didn't seem to hear him and didn't stop. The doctor's companions immediately shouted at him, "Stop, Durson, he doesn't understand us." The doctor, who turned a deaf ear, walked directly to the naked man and raised his arms. "We come for peace. Look, I'm not armed." The bearded, long-haired man looked down at him. "We came here specifically to find you." The next second, something strange happened. The long-haired man grabbed the doctor, and click. He bit off half of the doctor's head. Chapter 362 The Birth of the Strongest Father Warrior. Seeing that half of the doctor's head was bitten off, the people in front of him screamed in fear. "Oh my God, run! Get out of here!" The people in the expedition team rushed to escape from the terrifying man. Crunch! Crunch! The long-haired man who was chewing the doctor's head raised his beast-like eyes and looked at the fleeing people. Swoosh! Chewing the fresh and bloody head, the long-haired man started at lightning speed and stood in front of the expedition team. In the next second, bang! He threw the body on the ground and made a beast-like low sound to the terrified people. "I am the nameless god, the destroyer of souls, Chushan." The next day, the mercenaries who received the expedition team's call for help finally rushed to the scene with weapons. The other members of the expedition team at the scene were not hurt by Chushan. When the mercenaries arrived, they saw the expedition team standing on a glacier in a daze. And the naked man with scars all over his body was standing on the highest glacier, without moving. "What is he doing?" The captain of the mercenaries walked up and asked the other party in confusion. "Nothing. He hasn't moved for 6 hours, the captain nodded, feeling the chill in the air, and wrapped his gun tightly. "Cassandra, is it true that he ate the doctor's head?" The captain frowned and asked the leader in a vigilant and alert tone. "Yes, but his purpose is not just to kill. He is using this method to learn our language, Mr. Butler." The captain turned his head to Cassandra in surprise, as if he had heard something incredible. "But, this is impossible." Cassandra's expression was a little sullen. "This is a fact that happened. He said he doesn't need our help. I think I need to convince him in another way." As he said that, he slowly walked towards Chushan. Seeing Cassandra's actions, the captain subconsciously wanted to stop him. "Wait, this is too dangerous." "It doesn't matter, I know what to do." As he said that, he walked in front of Chushan. Facing this man who gave her a sense of oppression even without speaking, Cassandra mustered up her courage and said to him, "I want to ask you something," but before he could finish his words, he was rudely interrupted by Chushan. "Don't bother me. Sorry, I don't mean to bother you, but you seem to be waiting for something." After being buried underground for 7,000 years, you are still waiting. I don't know what you are waiting for." Hearing Cassandra's words, the furious Chushin jumped in front of him with a bang and grabbed his clothes and lifted him up. "How many years did you say?" Cassandra, who was grabbed by the clothes and lifted in the air, was so scared that her voice became stuttering. "A specific number of years? Sorry, I can only roughly estimate how long you have been buried." With a roar from his mouth, Chushin glared at the leader of the expedition team. "Damn it! How could it be 7,000 years? I dug a passage to its frozen surface from the magma pit under this huge rock. 7,000 years." His eyes were filled with angry flames, and his whole body trembled uncontrollably. 7,000 years? You told me it took 7,000 years. Seeing the other party's anger, it seemed that even the glaciers were shaking. Everyone was cautious and didn't dare to breathe. Cassandra swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and waited until the other party's anger seemed to dissipate a little before he dared to say to him, You come from a lost era that we know very little about." He told the other party what he knew. "This is a puzzle that historians are trying hard to piece together, but most of the pieces have been lost, and the puzzle that belongs to you has been completely erased." Hearing Cassandra's words, Chushin's eyes shot out hatred. "It was my father's handiwork, right? Yes, it was your father Zeus and his brothers who did it." After a moment of silence, Chushin asked him, "Where are my wives? How did you know of my existence?" Cassandra put his hands in his pockets to resist the cold, and his glasses were covered with a thick layer of ice crystals. Facing Chushin's question, he slowly said, "Your existence was erased from history because of a certain witch, the witch who predicted your fate when you were born. According to the prophecy, as Zeus's eldest son, you will one day become the master of Olympus, and the only master." At this point, Cassandra sighed slightly. "Originally, any good father should be proud of your future, but the stubborn Zeus sentenced you to death. He handed you over to the witch and ordered her to kill you, but your mother, Hera, begged the witch to spare your life. Although the witch could not disobey your father's order, out of sympathy for your mother, she just left you alone in the desert, letting this cruel world decide your fate." Raising her head, Cassandra's tone to Chushin became complicated. "However, although you have just come into contact with nature, as a newborn, you naturally turned the world into a baby room." He thought of the records he had read. Although he was a baby, Chushin could kill wild beasts when he was just born. "Did the witch tell you all this?" Chushin felt a flash of pain in his heart, but he quickly concealed this emotion and asked the other party coldly. Cassandra nodded, "In a sense, yes. 40 years ago, we found her mummy in Turkey. Your story was tattooed all over her skin. It took me almost my whole life to decipher it." He exhaled with emotion and looked at the vast glacier in front of him. "I also know other things, such as the whereabouts of your weapons and armor, which are what you need." Chushin clenched his fists, and his eyes flashed with resentment and pain. What kind of bastard father would ruthlessly kill his child just because of an illusory prophecy? Although he thought he was not a good person, he also thought he would never do such a beastly act. These so-called gods are ruthless and hypocritical, and there is not even a trace of affection between father and son. Father? He is just a coward who is attached to his throne. How can he be called a father? Chushin said hatefully. Cassandra did not speak. The air fell into silence, and there was only the howling of the wind around. "What are you waiting for?" After a while, Cassandra raised her head and asked him. "A signal. The person who will take the throne of the Lord God that I should inherit will be revealed soon. I will watch that person take the throne and then tear him down." A silver lightning-like light shot out of Chushin's eyes. Padrick Farm. After Peter and the Queen of Hades said a few words, he entered the room. "Godfather, is what Persenev said true?" Clark asked curiously. He was very interested in the so-called Ragnarok of the gods, although he had seen the Ragnarok of the Norse gods once in the Marvel world. "I don't know, but most of these so-called Greek gods have some induction and prophecy abilities. Maybe what the other party said will happen, but it has nothing to do with us." But Aunt Diana Clark wanted to say that Diana was also a member of the Greek gods. Subconsciously, he had already regarded Diana as Peter's potential marriage partner. The powerful and tough Amazon princess's counterpart left a deep impression on Clark in the world of Injustice. It can be said that most of the tragedy of Injustice Superman is caused by her. Although Diana in this world looks more normal than that in the Injustice world. But he is really afraid that she will bewitch him into Injustice Superman. Only the Godfather can control such a powerful and dangerous woman. Maybe after the Godfather and Diana get married, he can control her. Peter didn't know these messy thoughts in Clark's mind. He heard Clark calling the other party aunt and fell silent. You two are obviously about the same age, right? How come the generation difference is so big suddenly? Diana will be fine, and he is not a member of the Greek gods. She is on the opposite side. Peter coughed, interrupted the silence and said to Clark, "Come on, let's continue the treatment." Peter constructed the rune and continued to treat the other party's eyes. Feeling the comfortable feeling on his eyes, Clark's heart was filled with warmth. "Godfather, do you think you will be angry if I take your farm in the future?" Clark wanted to say inherit the farm, but he felt that he didn't seem to have the right to inherit, so he changed it to rob. Peter shrugged his shoulders. "If you can inherit the farm and make it better, I will be proud of you, Clark. But Godfather, what if the prophecy says that I will become a bad person?" "Who said that?" "A prophetic witch." Peter used the rune to heal Clark's eyes and said, "Rather than believing in these illusory prophecies, I believe in you now, Clark, and I also believe in my own eyes. Who knows what the future fate will be like? Maybe I will really make a mistake." Clark thought of Injustice Superman. Although he has always vowed that he will not become him, deep down in his heart, if he loses his godfather, parents and Lana, he may really do the same as Injustice Superman. He actually has no confidence in himself. In anger and pain, he doesn't know if he still has reason. It is estimated that no matter who stands in front of him at that time, he will not stop. Peter stopped what he was doing and said to Clark, "Then wait until you make a mistake." "Do you want me to punish you for something you haven't done yet?" "How do your eyes feel?" "Much better. My eyes are no longer dark. I can see a ray of light, although it's not that strong." "Thank you, Godfather." Clark thanked Peter excitedly. He finally didn't have to become a blind man. Chapter 363, Riven and her father fencing. The next day, Peter looked through the brochure on the table and asked Kara in surprise, "What is this?" "A new real estate agent gave me this brochure." Kara gulped down the water in the cup. "Long Island Manor, do you want to buy a house there?" Peter asked her in confusion. "Does Kara want to move out?" "No, I just want another home. You know, the real estate market is hot now, and the investor I know wants me to buy a house. He said I can make a lot of money." Kara talked to Peter. "What about your money?" Peter asked in confusion. "Where did you get the money to buy it?" "I can get it by going to Las Vegas, or..." Kara looked at Peter, revealing a malicious look in Peter's eyes. "You can lend me some money, Peter, and I'll pay you back when I have money." Faced with Kara's idea of borrowing his money, Peter directly refused. "No, I don't want my money to go down the drain. Kara, you know nothing about the financial games of Earthlings, so I suggest that you better not invest casually," Peter kindly suggested to the other party. "Or, you can ask Bruce for advice. He's the leading financial capitalist in Gotham City." "No, I can do it myself. When I was on Krypton, I was good at financial management." Kara directly rejected Peter's proposal. "I will help my mother keep accounts." "Keep accounts? It seems a bit far from financial management." Peter stroked his beard and said to her. Kara was wearing a blue sweatshirt in the early morning, which set off her perfect curvy figure. Peter looked at Kara's figure and said to him seriously, "Or, Kara, I can lend you money, but you must sign an agreement." Peter's voice made Kara feel ill-intentioned. "What agreement?" "It's very simple." Peter took out a pen and paper and put them in front of her. "How much money do you need?" "5 and 50. No, 1 million. Peter's eyelids jumped as he saw the other party asking for $1 million. "You are so bold, asking for 1 million. 1 million, not much, but what if you can't pay it back?" Peter pretended to be embarrassed. "You know, Kara, this 1 million is not a small amount. It is the amount of money that the farm can't make for decades." "Then what do you say?" Kara was too lazy to think and asked Peter directly. "If you can't pay it back, or your investment fails, then work on the farm for 10 years. Peter finally showed his big bad wolf face. Hearing Peter say 10 years, Kara shouted in shock. 10 years? No, that's too long. Kara didn't want to work on the farm for her whole life. Would that make her a farm slave? It's not the 17th century now, where black slaves are still popular. The agreement is fair to both parties. Kara, you can't give nothing, everything has risks, and besides, aren't you sure that you won't lose money on your investment? Signing this shouldn't be a big loss for you." "You're right." After being bewitched by Peter, Kara's self-confidence was full again. "I will definitely succeed." Kara leaned down and immediately signed the agreement drafted by Peter. "Wait, when I make money, I will buy your farm," Kara said confidently. Peter coughed. "I'm looking forward to it." While talking about his expectations, He quickly put away Kara's indenture, fearing that the other party would go back on his word. Tap. 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 It happened that Azu was helping Clark down the stairs at this time. Clark, whose super hearing was enhanced several times, had clearly heard how Peter deceived Kara into signing the indenture. Clark pushed up his sunglasses, feeling a little complicated. The Godfather used to say that Kara was the shame of Krypton, but he didn't believe it. Now that he saw that Kara was so easily deceived by the Godfather, he began to believe it. With Kara's easily deceived personality, if she worked as a superhero in the city, she would probably be captured by the villain in less than a week. Godfather, Kara, good morning. Clark was thinking about it, and deliberately coughed to greet Peter and Kara. Azu next to him glanced at Kara. Azu also heard the conversation between Peter and Kara just now. What he cares about is that Kara wants to buy her own farm. Azu looked around at the other person with a vigilant look. Now she hasn't married her father yet, but she's thinking about the property after marriage. This woman must be crazy. Azu was criticizing Kara, and Star-Lord and Loki also came down from upstairs. Peter saw Loki coming down and said to him, Loki, I found a tutor for you. Let McBee take you to school. You need to meet the new teacher. Hearing that Peter found a tutor for him, Loki immediately felt bad. I don't think I need a teacher, Dad. Loki shrugged his shoulders and said to Peter, I can always master anything quickly, whether it's magic or knowledge of the human world. I don't need a teacher. This is not up to you. No one cannot go to school, not even the god of stories. Peter forcefully suppressed Loki's thoughts. Although he was very reluctant, Loki finally succumbed to Peter's power. At noon, Peter was about to check the corn piled in the barn. Persephone jumped up to him. Dad. Hearing the other party calling him Dad, Peter knew that Raven had possessed her. What's wrong? Raven, why are you possessing Persephone again? Peter asked his daughter, who was blinking and a little shy. I want my dad to accompany me. Raven expressed her thoughts. What do you want me to do? Fencing, Dad. Raven's soul attached to the queen of the underworld, and said to Peter excitedly, this is an interesting activity I just discovered. I hope Dad can practice with me. Fencing. Peter was stunned for a moment and asked her, where did you see it, My Little Pony? Dad, can you teach me? Facing Raven's request, Peter fell silent. You are a wizard, and you want to learn close combat. Do you want to try the same style as Wonder Woman? Of course. Facing his daughter's request, Peter agreed immediately. Although he suspected that Raven might go astray, he couldn't spoil the fun. Raven immediately jumped into his arms excitedly and kissed him on the face. Peter felt a strange feeling when Persephone, who was occupied by Raven, kissed him. After coughing and putting this strange feeling behind him, Peter gently put the queen of the underworld, who was light and soft, on the ground. Then, he took out two long swords that Raven had taken from the god of fire from the warehouse. Peter had asked Diana to return the weapons to their original owners before. After learning about Raven's magical existence, the god of fire was not angry, but gave her a few weapons. Holding the long sword and tying up her long hair, Raven's soul attached to Persephone and began to practice. The beautifully shaped and powerful long sword danced like lightning under her powerful swing. The sharp sword wind seemed to open up the space in front of her. Although it was the first time to swing a long sword, Raven, who had a very high talent, swung the sword beautifully and lethally. Raven, put on knee pads and shoulder pads, and wear a protective mask, so that you won't get hurt. Peter just spent a few minutes using super speed to buy professional fencing equipment at a specialty store in town. Although Raven would not be hurt by the sword, this sense of ritual still needs to be there. Do I need to wear it? Raven asked doubtfully, but I feel it's a burden. Fencing is also a professional sport, so, you have to wear it. As he spoke, Peter put clothes on Raven, or Persephone. Although she was reluctant, she still listened to Peter and put on her professional clothes obediently. After putting on the uniform, Raven excitedly said to him, Dad, come with me, let's practice together. What did they say on TV? I remember it's called sword exchange. The sword exchange Raven mentioned means that one party attacks with a downward slash, and the other party responds with a defensive downward slash. The two parties gain control and suppress each other through the collision of fencing. Are you sure? Raven, Dad is very good. It's okay, Dad, let me try. Raven imitated what she saw on TV, and her left and right feet were slightly staggered, one in front and one behind. Holding the long sword with both hands, her body leaned forward slightly. I'm going to attack, Dad. After a reminder, Raven stepped forward to attack. Peter also changed into fencing uniform, raised the sword in his hand, and blocked Raven's attack. Swing, the two swords intersected, making a crisp collision sound. Raven occupied the center line with great momentum, and the blade drew a long arc and stabbed towards Peter's arm. Facing his daughter's attack, Peter was not in a hurry. He turned his wrist, pressed a blade on the opponent's long sword, and dragged it forward along the blade. In a flash, Peter's sword tip pierced Raven's mask. Dang, the tip of the blade pierced the stab-proof hood worn by Raven, making a crisp sound. How could it be? Raven widened her eyes and said frustratedly. She didn't expect that she would be defeated by her father so easily. She had secretly watched it on TV for a long time, and she also hoped to defeat her father and let him praise her, but she didn't expect that her plan would fail so quickly. Raven's expression was extremely depressed, and the discomfort and annoyance were all written on her face. Although losing to her father was not a big deal, it was still a bit uncomfortable that her plan could not be carried out. Chapter 364 If I abandon my dreams and innocence, Dad, I would rather die. Seeing that Raven looked a little uncomfortable, Peter took off his mask and quickly comforted her. Raven, you did a good job. If you were a little faster, Dad would have failed. No, I know that even if I were a little faster, I still couldn't defeat Dad. Dad, you don't need to comfort me, Raven said sensibly, because Dad can always be a little faster than me. That's not necessarily the case. Maybe you can be a little faster than Dad tomorrow. Peter smiled and touched Raven's hair. But, Raven, you must remember that whether it's fencing or fighting, you should take the simplest and most effective way. Don't make it complicated. For example, just now, you shouldn't stab my hand. Peter felt that it was a little inappropriate to tell the other party about the way to fight. After all, the other party's physical age was only that of a baby. So he coughed and prepared to change the subject. But Raven was very interested in this, and pestered Peter to ask how to defeat the other party more simply and efficiently. While explaining to his daughter, Peter wondered if the other party would grow up to become a Valkyrie like Diana, who slashed with a Vulcan sword. Raven, who was in high spirits, put on the mask again and practiced with Peter for a while. When the sun was high in the sky at noon, Raven took off the mask with a slight breath. Dad, thank you for practicing with me. Raven blinked her purple eyes and thanked Peter happily. Can you practice with me every day in the future? I mean with me and Persephone. Raven made a request again. At this age, Raven, you are not suitable for long-term practice, and you can't always be in Persephone's body. Hearing Peter's rejection, Raven's mood suddenly became depressed. But Dad promised you that I will accompany you to fence every week. Seeing his daughter's frustrated expression, Peter comforted her again. Thank you, Dad. Raven jumped into his arms excitedly again. Thank you, Dad. You are the best dad in the world. Leaving Peter's arms, Raven sighed like an adult. When can I grow up? She felt lost that she could not use her own body and accompany Peter to do things that only adults could do. Growing up is not an easy thing. Some people can't grow up, some people don't want to grow up, and some people pretend not to grow up. Peter patted Raven's hair gently. When you grow up, Raven, you will miss your childhood again. Why do I miss it? Because growing up means constant loss, and drifting away from innocence and dreams. What about Dad? Did Dad lose his innocence and dreams when he grew up? Me. Peter was stunned by Raven's question. After thinking for a while, he replied to his daughter, yes, me too. Peter's tone was a little emotional. He couldn't even remember his childhood dreams now. What was his childhood dream? To become a great scientist? Or to have a bunch of beautiful wives? Or to have money that he could not spend all his life? It seemed to be all, but it seemed to be none of them. That's a bit painful, Dad. Raven stroked the mask in her hand. If I really become what I don't want to be, it will be very painful. I can experience the pain of the other me who can't find myself. I can feel her soul. Raven talked about Raven in the world of injustice. Sadness appeared on her face, and her purple eyes looked up at the blue sky. Although she wanted to be a person who would not hurt others, she ended up hurting others all the time. Her initial dreams were all abandoned, and she finally became the person she hated. Dad, she raised her head, sadness in her eyes. If I grow up and my innocence and dreams are abandoned, will you hate me? No, of course not. Peter comforted his daughter. You won't, and Dad believes in you. But, Raven hesitated and wanted to say something. But she didn't say anything in the end, and hugged Peter tightly. Dad, my dream is to be with you forever and protect you. If I abandon my dream now when I grow up, Dad, I would rather die by myself. Raven hugged Peter and said in a muffled voice. Hearing Raven mention death, Peter frowned. He knocked on Raven's head. No, you are still young, Raven, don't say that word. Although he was moved by his daughter's words, he also knew that Raven could not stay with him forever. After all, girls cannot be left alone. Won't they get married when they grow up? I just don't know if there will be a yellow-haired one by then. Peter pinched his chin and began to add names to the death list. He remembered that in the parallel world, Damien would have a connection with Raven. Although he didn't know whether Damien would be born in this world, he had to take precautions and strictly forbid the boy to get close to Raven. Death? Dad, I'm not unfamiliar with it. I felt that kind of emotion in another Raven. Raven in the world of injustice had experienced 3 deaths and 3 reincarnations. Although Raven was young, she experienced the emotions between humans more deeply than ordinary people. She said to Peter, Dad, I'm not afraid of death. I know the emptiness and fear of that emotion, but I'm not afraid. What I'm afraid of is that death will separate us. Hearing his daughter's sincere words, Peter was stunned for a moment, and then gently hugged her. No, never, Dad swears to you, Peter comforted Raven, who was depressed and had red eyes, while looking at the blue sky with dark clouds. As the breeze blew, Peter's mood became sentimental along with Raven. Meanwhile, in a room on the outskirts of the metropolis, Diana was anxiously waiting outside, and Zora's screams of pain were heard from the room. She didn't expect Zora to have a premature birth. Hearing Zora's painful voice due to childbirth, the anxious Diana asked Hermes, who was in charge of the delivery, how is it? Hermes, is everything normal? Everything is normal, don't worry. After replying to Diana outside, Hermes encouraged Zora, try hard, it will come out soon. Zora, you can do it. Zora, who was screaming, grabbed the quilt in her hand. Half an hour later, Zora's voice finally calmed down. Diana waited for a few minutes, walked to the door, and knocked on the door. Hermes, how is it? Did Zora's delivery go smoothly? There was no response from inside the door. With a hint of doubt in her eyes, she continued to knock on the door. Hermes, open the door, damn it. Realizing that something was wrong, she kicked the door open. In the end, only Zora, who was lying weakly on the bed, was left in the room. Hermes was nowhere to be seen. Zora, without caring about anything else, Diana quickly came to Zora on the bed and held her hand. Zora, who was weak and sweaty on her forehead, said to her with difficulty, he stole my child, that Birdman. Diana, help me, he stole my child. Facing Zora's emotional breakdown, Diana hugged her head. Zora, listen to me, I swear on my life. I will bring him to you and bring your child back, I swear. Diana gritted her teeth, anger gushing from her eyes. The humiliation of being betrayed attacked her whole body. Until then, I will never stop, my dear friend. Today, both of us have been betrayed. I will definitely find Hermes, I will keep chasing him, never stop. I will find your child, and I will make that thief Hermes pay for his crime. While making the oath, Diana felt deeply guilty. Peter had clearly reminded herself that Hermes did not look like a good person. Although she had doubted Hermes, she had never been too defensive against him. Unexpectedly, he actually betrayed her. Being held by Diana, Zora's mood stabilized a little. She helplessly asked Diana, where are we going next? Hermes, the Birdman, had stolen her child. Apollo, the sun god, took the initiative to negotiate with Hera a week ago and has not returned yet. Now she didn't know what to do. Diana's expression became serious. When Hermes was still around, we could use his power to travel anywhere in the world, but now it's not possible. Seeing Diana's serious expression, Zora said to her, otherwise, let's go back to the farm to find Peter. The only helper she could think of now was Peter. No, we can't always trouble Peter. Diana shook her head and said. She didn't know why she always had this mentality and didn't want Peter to get too involved. And now because she didn't listen to Peter, Hermes betrayed her. She was even more embarrassed to see Peter. You feel that you can't owe Peter too much, right? Because you want to maintain the relationship between you and don't want to be the one who is always helped. Zora saw her inner thoughts. Diana, I know your mentality very well. Obviously, you are now in a whirlpool of emotions. No, Zora, I just don't want to hurt him too much. I don't want my mother and my sister's experiences to repeat themselves on Peter. Diana said what she thought, and a painful look appeared on her face. I'm afraid I will destroy everything around me. That's just your idea. Diana. I think you should ask Peter if he minds, in the afternoon. An uninvited guest suddenly came to Padrick Manor. Raven, whose sole-occupied person Eve, sounded in shock at the door. Dad, a strange woman is here. In the new January, I ask for monthly tickets from readers. Sanchin will definitely add more. Thank you readers on your knees, and I hope that readers will always smile and good luck will come naturally. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 365 The Filial Son Who Gave His Mother to Peter. Hera, wearing a peacock feather robe, only covered the key parts of her chest. With a large area of white skin exposed, she stared blankly at the screaming queen of the underworld, Raven. What's going on? Why did Persephone call someone father? Hesitantly, she was wondering whether to enter the farm. Footsteps suddenly sounded from behind. Hera turned her head and found that it was Wonder Woman and Zora. Zora, who was supported by Diana, saw Hera, who had been chasing her, appear in front of her. Regardless of her weak body, she immediately rushed towards Hera angrily. Hera, who had not yet reacted, was hit hard by Zora's big mouth. Hera was completely enraged by the slap, her face flushed, and she instantly became ashamed and angry. Regardless of the pain on her face, Hera roared, "You uneducated!" Before she could finish scolding Zora, she was strangled by the excited Zora. She wanted to fight back after losing her divine power, but she couldn't get rid of the other party at all. Zora was particularly strong, pinching her so hard that her tongue came out. Let go. Hera was having difficulty breathing, and she used all her strength to grab Zora's hair. The two of them pulled each other. Zora grabbed Hera's long hair that was tied up. The Queen of God's long golden hair instantly spread out. She was in a mess, and wanted to grab Zora's hair and pull her back. As a result, Zora's short hair didn't allow her to exert any strength at all. Staggering, she fell to the ground instead. Damn it, her face flushed, and she saw her snow-white body covered with mud, and her humiliation deepened. Uneducated little bitch. Before she could stand up, the excited Zora threw herself on her. Riding on the Queen of Guts, Zora slapped her again without hesitation. Hera, who was hit so hard that she almost cried. Holding Zora's arm, the two women started to fight on the ground. At this time, Diana, who was watching the scene nearby, finally reacted. Zora, she stepped forward and pulled up Zora, who wanted to strangle Hera. Calm down, this bitch, I'm going to kill her, Zora said angrily, regardless of her physical weakness. The reason why she became like this was all because of this woman. Now looking at her appearance, it is obvious that she has no divine power. Of course, she must get back all the suffering she has suffered during this period. If she doesn't beat her now, she may not have the chance in the future. Diana saw her enemy right in front of her, drew out the Vulcan sword, and walked towards the Queen of Gods. Looking at Diana, who was slowly walking towards her, Hera, who was lying on the ground, also became fierce. Raising the Vulcan sword, Diana was ready to chop off her head. The rage of revenge gradually consumed her. But reason told her that she couldn't kill Hera now. The other party was still useful to her. She couldn't kill Hera before figuring out what happened. What? Are you too soft-hearted? Hera asked Diana coldly, or do you feel guilty for killing an unarmed person? Why did you appear in the world? Why don't you have divine power? Diana exhaled, and finally did not chop at the other party. Seeing that Diana did not attack her immediately, Hera's expression softened. It was Apollo. Hera's eyes revealed reluctance. Ambition blinded Apollo's eyes. He expelled me from the throne and became the new master of Olympus. Diana looked at Hera in shock. Wait? You said Apollo defeated you and exiled you to Earth? She really didn't expect Apollo to be so capable that he defeated and exiled her mother right away. Yes, but he won't succeed. Hera's eyes flashed with anger. In the eyes of Zeus, everything in the world is his private property. He is a real man. He can't just not exist like this, and he can't tolerate others getting involved in his things. Once Apollo ascends to the throne, Zeus will immediately show up and clear that scum from his throne. Facing Hera's blind arrogance, Diana snorted coldly. I dare say that you trust Zeus himself more than he does himself. Hera ignored Diana and turned her gaze to Zora. We are gods. My loyalty and faith to that man will never change. And you, have you ever loved him? Hira glared at Zora, who was having sex with her husband. Me, Zora said disdainfully, about an hour or so, then try to love him. When you are old, the roaring beast born from your union will always follow you. It will jump between cliffs, and you will fall into the eternal abyss. Faced with Hira's curse, Zora did not indulge him and spit on her face. Hira, whose defense was broken, rushed towards Zora again with a red face. Even if she couldn't beat her, she would tear this woman's mouth apart. Swoosh! Before she rushed to Zora, Diana's lasso of truth was wrapped around her hand, tying her up tightly. Maybe you should calm down. On the farm, Peter and Raven were watching as spectators, fascinated. Seeing Hira being subdued by Diana and the battle over, Peter knew that he had to go out next. After all, letting a woman fight in front of your farm is always a bad influence. Diana, Wonder Woman, tied up Hira with a lasso of truth, and when she was about to ask a question, a voice came. Peter came out of the living room. He took a look at Hira's almost completely exposed white skin and coughed. Activating the function of the sandbag, Peter then took out a piece of clothing from the dream world and threw it to Hira. He was really afraid that Raven would learn bad things from her because she was wearing such revealing clothes. Seeing Peter appear, Diana came forward excitedly. You look like you're in a little trouble, Diana. Well, not big, but not small either. Diana looked at Hira, who was holding the clothes. I'm sorry, I didn't completely believe you, which led to that bastard Hermes deceiving us. Diana told Peter about Hermes stealing the baby. You should be careful enough, Diana. After all, he is the god of thieves. It's not right to trust a god of thieves. Come in first. Realizing that Zora was not in a good state, Peter asked a few people to go into the house first. Hira, who was wearing the windbreaker Peter threw to her, was also led into the living room by Diana with mixed feelings. After using the room to heal Zora's tired body, Peter let her rest in the room. Peter, do you know about Apollo? Diana asked Peter after he sat down. No, he seems to have gotten rid of the sand I put in his body, and also got rid of my surveillance. Peter didn't expect that Apollo, who was trained by Clark in the World Tree, could suddenly become the Lord of Olympus. However, although he became the Lord of Olympus, he did not come back to avenge himself, but instead exiled her mother Hera to his farm, which means that he did not want to fall out with him. Originally, he wanted to know how he got rid of his sand, but since he sent his mother here, Peter temporarily pretended not to see it. After all, such a filial son is rare. How did he do it? Diana asked Hera in a stern voice. Although she didn't want to talk about her humiliation, Hera, who had become immortal and was tied up by the lasso of truth, had no choice but to tell the truth. He joined forces with Artemis. Artemis? Do you mean Artemis, the goddess of the moon and the goddess of hunting? It's her, the little bitch, Hera said with gritted teeth. Did Apollo say anything to me? Diana continued to ask with a frown. At the same time, she looked at the wristbands on her wrists. This pair of wristbands once belonged to Artemis. Hera nodded and replied, yes, he asked me to tell you that he promised you that he would never trouble the child again, but the premise is that the child cannot be a calamity that kills gods for a seed. Hearing Hera's words, Diana asked curiously, what does this mean? Is he afraid that Zora's child will seize his throne? Hera shook her head. That is a prophecy that is circulating. The prophecy says that a child of Zeus will kill the gods of Olympus and sit on that position. Diana nodded. So he thinks the child of prophecy may be Zora's child? No, in fact, we all tend to think that person is you, Diana, me. Hearing that Hera thought she was the calamity that sat on the throne, she was stunned. No. This is not me. I have no interest in the so-called throne. Diana cast her eyes to the courtyard outside the farm. For me, there are things far more important than the throne. Antarctica. The snowmobile is digging on a glacier. According to my calculations, judging from the patterns on the mummy, your clothes are buried under the glacier here. Cassandra, the leader of the expedition, said to Chushin. No, that's my skin. What? Chushin glanced at him coldly. My skin, my strength, I peeled it off from the dragon I killed with my bare hands. As he said that, he laughed, and the shaking glacier shook. What are you laughing at? Cassandra stood unsteadily and asked him in fear. I'm laughing at the gods being too arrogant and ridiculous, burying me in my treasure so close. Silver light shot out of his eyes, and a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Let's see who can laugh last. Boom. As soon as Chushin finished speaking, the ground shook violently, and the snow excavator was suddenly overturned by something, flew heavily into the sky, and fell to the ground. The workers screamed and fled the excavation site, as if they had seen something terrifying. Chapter 366, Putting Sexy Handcuffs on the Queen. A giant made of frost stood up from the glacier with a roar. With red eyes and cold mouth, the giant punched the fleeing people away. Eldest son, the giant with the red light in his eyes roared at Chushin, "I will kill you again." Facing the attack of the frost giant, Chushin grabbed Cassandra and hugged her to avoid the attack of the giant. With a crash, the place where Cassandra was standing was smashed by the giant's fist. The fist wind swept across the glacier with a whistling sound. Cassandra, who was saved by Chushin, thanked him with lingering fear. "Thank you, man." There is a sentence in the witch's translation that I read before, "The guards of hell are in front of you." I thought it was a metaphor, but I didn't expect to see the guards of hell. These giants are just little ghosts in the underworld who are using big banners to cover up their own interests. They are not the guards of hell. With a cold snort, Chushin suddenly jumped towards the frost giant. With a bang, his fist made a dull sound and hit the giant's arm. Chushin, who had great strength, directly smashed the ice crystals covering the opponent's body with his fist. As the ice crystals exploded, the flesh and blood inside the frost giant were also attacked, and blood spurted out immediately. "You can't represent hell." After breaking the frost giant's arm with a punch, Chushin held his temporary weapon, a spear given to him by Cassandra, crushed the ice crystals on the ground with his feet, and then jumped into the air with a bang. Holding the spear, Chushin roared and inserted it into the frost giant's head. The giant, who was more than 10 meters tall, wailed and fell heavily to the ground. Cassandra saw the monster fall to the ground. While she was shocked by Chushin's strength, she also worried about her journey. It seemed that she was involved in some dangerous incident. However, before he could breathe a sigh of relief, the frost giant's arm moved and grabbed towards Chushin. Chushin, who had been prepared for this, smashed the opponent's arm with one punch. Blood and bones splashed into the air, and the pungent smell of blood immediately filled the entire space. The frost giant did not die immediately, but roared at Chushin, "I look forward to hearing your wailing in hell, until eternity." Crack! Chushin smashed the frost giant's arm completely in one go. "Then you will never be able to wait. I spent 7,000 years crawling out of the ground, not to die." As soon as Chushin finished speaking, the frost giant kicked him hard and flew out. The frost giant's two arms were broken, but he could still move. The giant who lost his arm stood up and grabbed Cassandra, who was closest to him. Cassandra immediately jumped to the side, and the glacier collapsed and rushed towards him. At the same time, the giant's legs also stepped on him. Boom! At the critical moment, Cassandra burst out with inhuman strength, suddenly jumped to a height of more than 10 meters, and then jumped to the ground. "Where do you think you can run to?" The giant trampled on the fleeing Cassandra and roared. "You follower, follow your master to death." The monster with red light flashing in his eyes reached out to grab Cassandra. Although he tried his best to escape, Cassandra's robe was torn off in an instant, and he staggered and fell to the ground. The robe was torn off, and Cassandra's true body was revealed in front of everyone. When the people from other expedition teams saw Cassandra's true body, they immediately took a breath of cold air. Although Cassandra's way of speaking is neutral and masculine, her real appearance is a woman with short blonde hair. Although her facial features are delicate and beautiful, what shocked everyone is that her neck is not made of flesh and blood, but mechanical. From a distance, it looks like her head is installed on a mechanical body. The frost giant obviously didn't expect this to happen. After being stunned for a second, it roared. "It seems that I was wrong. Judging from your appearance, you have deceived the god of death once." As it said this, it was ready to step on Cassandra, who was lying on the ground. But before he stepped on it, Chushin's voice came from behind him, "Have you forgotten my existence?" Bang! Chushin crushed the glacier under his feet, jumped into the air, and punched the giant's head to pieces. Boom! The giant who lost his head finally fell to the ground, and blood rushed down like a waterfall. Chushin, who was bathed in blood, slowly walked to Cassandra. "It seems that you have also hidden a lot of things from me, Cassandra. I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to." "Then tell me now, your neck. What's the matter with this armor?" Cassandra shook her head. "This is not armor, Chushin. This is my neck, and I have no choice at all." "What do you mean?" "Just like this machine. Look at it," Cassandra said, pointing to the snowmobile machine next to her. "My body is similar to it. This is a mechanical structure. The world is very different from when you were there, and you still have a lot to learn." Chushin frowned and asked him, "Why should I learn?" "Because once you don't start learning, you will fall behind the world." Shaking her head, Cassandra looked at the dark polar night. For more than 7,000 years, many things have happened in this world that you don't know, and humans are no longer the powerless humans before. After a moment's silence, she asked Chushin, "Are you a god?" "Yes, a distant existence, but the era of gods is over and we have to go. Since you have successfully removed your skin, it's time to remove your weapons." Cassandra signaled that he should leave here. Chushin's body was naked before because his combat suit was buried underground here. Now that his skin has been retrieved, the next thing Chushin has to do is to take back his power. "You know where my weapon is?" "Right," Chushin asked Cassandra. "Yes, I know, inside a volcano, in the sea." Chushin nodded. "Very good, my skin is guarded by the people of the underworld, and my power is guarded by my uncle in the ocean. Next, I will have a good chat with that uncle, Padrick Farm." Queen Hera sat on the sofa, wearing handcuffs that Peter got from somewhere. Although Hera was very dissatisfied with Peter handcuffing her hands. But now that she has lost her power, she can no longer resist. Zora, who was sitting on the other side of the sofa, cast her eyes on the pink handcuffs in Hera's hand from time to time. She found that Peter didn't know where to get these handcuffs. Aren't they the kind of fun handcuffs commonly used between couples? Although this thing can tie people up, it can be destroyed by just hitting it with a hammer, right? And why buy such a pair of handcuffs? Peter was chatting with Diana in the room upstairs at this time. He didn't know that Zora had misunderstood him. He casually manifested a pair of handcuffs from the dream world. Peter didn't know the purpose of this kind of handcuffs, so he didn't study it in detail and put it on the other party. Humph, seeing Hera wearing sexy handcuffs and looking unaware, Zora felt a sense of revenge in her heart. She would never tell the secret of the handcuffs to others. Then she would see how the Queen of Gods would be embarrassed. The TV screen was playing a variety show called Looking for Father. The young man who seemed to be black was complaining about his parents. "My mother, she is definitely a bitch." The Queen of Gods, holding the remote control, pressed the channel change button on the remote control. The TV screen changed to a car race. Driver number 1 is in the lead. He is about to reach the finish line, and at the fourth corner, driver number 2 overtook him. Hera continued to press the channel change button. With a blank expression on her face, she glanced at Zora, who was quietly moving to the side and trying to snatch the remote control. With a bang, Hera unceremoniously smashed the remote control on Zora's head. Zora's head was smashed, and she immediately pressed the other's arm angrily, pressed her body on top, and pressed Hera tightly. The two women entangled each other on the sofa. "Stop!" Seeing the two careless women fighting again, Peter, who came downstairs, shouted at each other, "Don't fight on the sofa." Seeing Peter appear, Hera and Zora said to Peter at the same time. She started it first. The two looked at each other with hatred, and then turned their heads away at the same time. Peter looked at the indignant Hera and felt a little headache. He was now considering whether to lock her up in the World Tree first. Let this former Queen of Gods experience the enthusiasm of the Asgardians. There are more than 3,000 Asgardians in his own World Tree who can help take care of this Queen of Gods. Lunch. Hera, Zora and Peter, who were wearing red long dresses, ate together. These foods, Hera put the hamburger and potato chips aside with some disgust. McBee accompanied Loki to school, so Peter ordered takeout directly. "Is it not delicious?" Peter frowned and asked, looking at the handcuffed and picky Queen of Gods. "No, it's terrible." Zora next to her couldn't help but sneer at her. "You think it's not delicious? That's really great." Hera asked her indignantly, "Why do you want to build your happiness on my pain? Because you have tried to kill me several times. You slept with my husband. What can I do?" Zora shrugged her shoulders. "What should I do? Kill him?" "What? Kill my husband? I'm his queen. How is it possible? Because he cheated on you, not me, but him." Zora looked at Peter next to her and suggested, "Since you are the queen, why not marry Peter? It's impossible to be a queen, so be the queen of the farm." Chapter 367. Hello, Azu. Hearing Zora's nonsense, Diana glared at her. How could she give the queen of the farm to the other party? This is what she coveted. Zora saw Diana's thoughts and said to Hera helplessly, "I'm sorry, you can only be ranked second. There are people who covet the position of the queen of the farm more than you." Diana, here listened to Zora's words and cast a suspicious look at Peter. The queen of the farm? She had known about Peter's mystery and power before, and now she was more curious about Peter. He had snatched the queen of the underworld back from Hades. Would the other party really want to snatch her to his side as a wife? She was in doubt and looked at the world tree in the courtyard. Although she was no longer a god, she could vaguely sense that the world tree in front of her was emitting a strong and frightening power. That was a power she had never seen in other Olympian gods. Are you really a god? Or an alien god from another world? Hera hesitated and asked Peter. God? No, I'm not. I'm just a farmer. Peter put the hamburger back on the plate in front of Hera, and a farmer who doesn't approve of wasting food. No, it's impossible. Hera didn't believe that the other party was really an ordinary farmer. Maybe Hera kept guessing about Peter's origins in her heart. Maybe the other party was a god from another world, and as powerful as Zeus. She just saw it with her own eyes. Peter materialized a piece of clothing for her. The fluctuations in the air reminded her that ordinary gods couldn't do it as easily as Peter did. At this time, Hera was really thinking about what she should do if the other party really wanted to force her to marry her. Refuse directly? Looking down at the pink handcuffs on her hands, she felt that there was little chance of resistance. Hera was thinking about how to avoid Peter's claws. Raven, who was held by Persephone, suddenly asked Peter, Dad, can I be the queen of the farm? Looking at the baby Raven, her eyes flashed with a look that didn't match her age, and Hera was stunned. Is this still a baby? This family is really not normal. Smallville High School. Azu helped Clark, who was wearing sunglasses, walk to the classroom. How are your eyes? Azu asked him. Not bad, I can see the light now, although it's a little blurry, but I think it will be fine in a few days. Clark felt the noisy sound coming from his ears. My hearing has improved a lot. It seems that I can feel all the sounds in this world. That's good, but if there is a person hiding in a place made of lead, you will definitely not be able to hear his voice. Azu already knew Clark's weakness to lead. Maybe, John, but if there is a person hiding in a place made of zinc, you will definitely not be able to hear his voice. Clark smiled slightly, indicating that I also know your weakness. Everyone is even. No, of course not. Azu was a little flustered when Clark pointed out his weaknesses, but he naturally would not admit it. I am the strongest superhero besides my father. How could I have shortcomings? But you in another world, the black-robed Homelander, your sight cannot penetrate zinc. Azu pinched his waist, exhaled, and looked to the left and right. He is him, I am me. We are two different people, just like Injustice Superman and you. Although he is a villain, I will not put my opinion of him on you, Clark. You and I, we are the real Superman and Captain Homeland. The others are just deviated universes. Azu said to him with a serious expression, whether it is the black-robed world, the Marvel world, or the Injustice world, haven't you noticed? Those universes have no father. Only our universe has a father. Among countless universes, only our universe is special, and the father is also unique. As he spoke, Azu looked at the bright sunshine outside the corridor. I kept thinking that in other worlds, we might meet other people, but here, my father appeared in our lives. The universe is so big, but only in this world did my father find us. We are all unique, and my father is the only one in countless universes. Maybe he is here to change our destiny. Azu said what he really thought. The only one, Clark whispered to himself for a while. Another self in the world of Injustice had a similar childhood to himself, grew up with Martha and Jonathan, and had Smallville's memories. But in that world, there was no trace of the Godfather. Is the Godfather really the only one in countless parallel universes? In the vast universe, is there an existence that has established emotions with himself and Azu? The two walked towards the classroom with different moods, and heard panicked footsteps behind them. Clark, John, little Sam has been kidnapped. Chloe ran over to the two with sweat on her forehead and said. Kidnapped? Azu frowned. What happened? I don't know. I was walking on the road with Sam, and then a car suddenly rushed by, and the man in the car took Sam away directly. Clark asked her, did you call the police? Yes, I have called the police, but I don't know when the police will find him. Chloe said in a panic, I'm worried that Sam will be in danger. Don't worry, Chloe, the kidnappers must have their own purpose. It's impossible to kidnap for no reason. They will definitely contact us. Clark's voice just fell. Chloe's cell phone rang. After answering the phone and saying a few words, she hung up with a grim face. What's wrong? Chloe said with a heavy heart. The kidnappers contacted Sam's mother and asked her to withdraw the charges against the robbers who robbed the jewelry store. Sam's mother is the presiding judge of the Smallville court. The case she was in charge of today was the gangster who had a gun in the jewelry store before, but Clark used thermal vision to destroy the gun. I remember now. Clark immediately understood the situation. He said to the two people, there were two people who robbed the store. One of them sent out sonic waves to attack, and the other entered the store to rob with a gun. When I destroyed the man's gun, the one who sent out high-frequency sonic waves escaped. Chloe nodded. In other words, it was the guy who sent out the sonic waves who kidnapped Sam and asked Sam's mother to let his accomplice go. She frowned and looked at her watch. The court trial is about to begin. The other party said that if Sam's mother does not withdraw the charges, he will kill Sam. Holding the phone, Chloe's tone was full of worry and uneasiness. The trial will begin in 5 minutes. Anxious, Chloe called the court again. Clark's super hearing heard the voice on the other end of the phone. Ms. Jones chose not to withdraw the charges. Between choosing to uphold the law and compromise with the criminals, Sam's mother chose the former. Shit, Chloe couldn't help but curse when she heard the news. I can find where Sam is, Clark said to Chloe, who was gradually falling into despair. Leave it to me next. Clark's hearing was enhanced several times, and he believed that he could hear the voices of Sam and the gangsters. Let Zoo take him out of the classroom and come to the empty activity room. Clark ignored the messy and useless sounds and listened to Sam's voice attentively. According to what Peter taught him, he focused his attention and imagined himself as a whale swimming in the sea. Everything around him was blocked by his whale, swimming forward all the time, searching for special signals for himself. Time passed by, but Clark did not gain anything. Zoo frequently looked down at his watch. I can do it, I can hear everyone's voice, I can definitely find Sam. Encouraging himself in his heart, Clark tried to listen to countless messy signals, while his super brain started to work and process the complicated information. Suddenly, Sam's voice rang in his ears. After hearing Sam's familiar voice, Clark excitedly held Zoo's arm next to him. I heard it, John, I heard Sam's voice. Good job, Clark. There are still 2 minutes before the kidnappers kill Sam. Pray that your super hearing can save him. Azu put down his hand and asked Clark, where are they? 1 minute later, Azu activated his super speed and came to an abandoned factory on the outskirts of the town. Swoosh! The next second, Azu moved into the factory at lightning speed. The scene in front of him was beyond his expectations. The guy who seemed to be the kidnapper was tied up and hanging under the ceiling of the factory. The robber, who was beaten and swollen, saw Azu standing under him and asked him for help in a difficult tone. Save me. Seeing the other party's appearance, Azu's vigilance rose to the maximum. With red eyes, Azu looked around, looking for possible enemies. This is an empty room with only some scrap metal piled together. The whole space exudes a stale and rusty smell. Zizzy, Azu, who noticed the movement behind him, suddenly shot out a thermal line of sight. But the heat rays he emitted were blocked by a mirror that appeared out of nowhere. Boom, the emitted heat rays were rebounded to the scrap metal pile, making a deafening sound. Countless metal fragments flew into the air and fell down with a clatter. Hello, John, a steady and playful voice sounded in front of Azu. Azu looked at the woman not far away in surprise, whose magic barrier was slowly disappearing. The other person's long legs were covered with fishnet stockings, her long black hair was loose, and her tall figure was wearing a black magic costume. The long-legged beauty, who exuded a beautiful and mysterious aura, smiled and said to him, Chapter 368 Zatanna, long time no see, sir. Who are you? Azu looked at the long-legged beauty in front of him, and always felt that she was inexplicably familiar. It seemed that he had seen her somewhere before. You are really forgetful, John. The long-legged beauty walked towards him with a smile. When you secretly went to the mystery house, did you forget its owner? Mystery house. Hearing the other party talking about the mystery house, Azu was shocked. He looked at the other party with an unbelievable look. Is this Zatanna? How is it possible? The girl with braids in the past has grown into a woman so tall in front of him in the blink of an eye? You are Zatanna. Azu was stunned for a long time, frowned and asked the other party. Yes, long time no see, John. I remember that when I left, you were not so tall, but soon she changed the subject. But, it seems not too tall, Azu. The originally good mood was immediately ruined by the woman in front of him. He originally cared about his body and was not as tall as Clark. Now that the other party said it ruthlessly, he immediately pulled his face down. Seeing Zu's unhappy expression, Zatanna waved her hand. Don't mind it, John, I'm just kidding. You've actually grown very tall. Zu didn't want to talk about height with him anymore. He coughed and asked, did you tie this guy up here? Yes, I saw this guy driving a car sneakily on my way back to Smallville, and there was someone tied up in the car, so I followed him here. Zatanna told the reason why she was here. This guy also has the superpower of using high-frequency sound waves, but these don't do much for me. Where's Sam? Are you talking about the kidnapped person? Zatanna pointed outside the factory. He's waiting outside. Why? Do you know that black man? Zu nodded. I came here for him. Since you saved him, it's none of my business. You sound a little unhappy. Is it because I stole your prey, John? Zatanna snapped her fingers as she spoke. The rope hanging the kidnapper broke directly, and the tied person fell to the ground with a thump. I can leave him to you. Zatanna looked unconcerned and asked Azu, is Mr. Padraic okay? Her purpose this time was to visit Peter at the farm. She was not interested in other things and saved people just because she happened to see them. Fortunately, I think Dad will be happy that you can come. Padraic Farm. Peter was a little surprised by Zatanna's sudden arrival. The cute girl before turned into this tall and long-legged beauty in front of him. This girl really changes a lot when she grows up. Sir, the excited Zatanna rushed over to Peter when he was sighing. I really missed you. Zatanna's voice was choked with sobs. Me too. Peter patted his shoulder gently. You've grown taller. Zatanna, I've aged a bit. Zu and Clark next to him. No, you're not, sir. Zatanna forced a smile on her face and looked at Peter with tears in her eyes. You haven't aged at all. You're still the same as when I left. A surge of emotion surged in her heart. Zatanna was happy to meet Peter, but also surprised that Peter's appearance had not changed at all after she had been away for several years. She didn't even see any wrinkles on Peter's face that left traces of time. It seemed that time had really cast a spell on Peter, making his youth stay forever. Even though Zatanna was proficient in countless profound and obscure magics in the world, she didn't know which magical magic was cast on Peter. With complicated thoughts in her heart, Zatanna raised her head and looked around the living room. It was still the familiar furnishings, and the layout of the room was exactly the same as her previous memories. Except for a few more unfamiliar women. On the other side, Zoran and Queen Hera, who Zatanna thought were strangers to women, looked at each other. Looking at the tall and long-legged Zatanna, Zora said to Hera, if you want to be the queen of the farm, the competition should be fierce. Hera ignored her and just snorted coldly. Zatanna's eyes accidentally caught a glimpse of the pink handcuffs in Hera's hand. Knowing the real purpose of this thing, she immediately fell silent. Could it be that Mr. Peter is so good at playing? Zatanna suddenly felt that she didn't know Peter well enough. Da. Persephone heard the sound and carried Raven downstairs. Seeing the cute Raven appear, Zatanna's eyes sparkled and she immediately walked up. Wow, she's so cute. Zatanna touched Raven's face and asked Peter, what's her name, sir? Raven, is she your daughter? Yes, Zatanna nodded and said to Persephone who was holding Raven, then you must be Raven's mother. I am Zatanna Zatara, a magician. Hearing Zatanna call herself Raven's mother, Persephone waved her hands nervously and said with a blushing face, no, I'm not Raven's mother, no. Zatanna was stunned for a second, and then her eyes were fixed on Zora and Hera in the room. Could it be that the two women in front of her were Raven's mother? Is Mr. Peter's emotion so complicated? Raven's mother is dead, Peter coughed and came out to say. The woman who combined with the three palace demon is now dead. So now it's not nonsense. Oh, sorry, Zatanna, who thought she had said something wrong, apologized to Peter and Raven. It's okay, Peter signaled that the other party didn't care. Zatanna nodded, noticing Raven's big eyes, which had been looking at her curiously. She stretched out her hand to tease Raven. I have always wanted to become a child. Raven, do you want to see how I become a child? Raven nodded expectantly. Zatanna took off her white magic gloves under the gaze of everyone. Her slender white fingers gently rubbed the gloves in front of Raven. While rubbing, she whispered to Raven, the secret is, open your heart to magic, and we can become a child. As her fingers opened, the white gloves that she had originally held in her hand turned into a pigeon with snow-white feathers. Whoo! Zatanna threw the pigeon upwards lightly, and the pigeon flew out of her hand. Looking up at the pigeon flying into the sky, Raven was stunned. She had never seen such a different magic up close. How did you do it, sister? Raven asked her directly. Zatanna didn't expect Raven to be able to speak directly. Is this still a baby being held by someone? Zatanna looked at Peter in amazement. Raven is gifted. Although her body is that of a baby, her soul is quite mature, Peter explained to her after seeing Zatanna's inquiring eyes. Raven's soul is indeed mature. She has already caused a big disturbance in the underworld and has also been to the world of injustice. After these experiences, Raven is no longer just a child. Incredible. Zatanna looked at Raven with a surprised look. Raven, do you want to learn magic from me? Yes, Raven nodded in agreement without thinking. At night, after Kara, Diana and McBee returned home, they found that there was another woman on the farm. Although they were a little shocked, the three of them suddenly felt that it was not strange when they thought about what happened to Peter. I have traveled to many countries and joined some magic organizations. During this period, I lost my magic power, but these have become my life experience. At dinner, Zatanna told Peter about her travels in the past few years. You said your father is Guan John Zatara, Wonder Woman asked her in surprise. Yes, have you heard of my father? Diana put down the cup in her hand. I have heard of him. It is said that he is a great magician, a direct descendant of Leonardo da Vinci, and is related to many famous prophet masters, alchemists, and mystics in history. Then do you know where my father is? Zatanna immediately asked the other party. She has been looking for her father in the past few years, but has not found any clues. Sorry, I don't know. Hearing Diana's words, Zatanna let out a sigh of disappointment. McBee, who was standing next to her, asked her curiously, what kind of magic do you have? Irony magic, Zatanna explained to the vixen. The magic I am best at is irony magic, which is to read the magic spell backwards, so that ordinary words can affect reality and cast magic. McBee complained after hearing this, that must be very troublesome. I have a headache with English spelling words, and it is probably impossible to read them backwards. Zora, who was listening quietly on the other side, heard that Zatanna knew irony magic, and asked her, Zioza, since you are the descendant of a great magician and you know irony magic, can you help me find the whereabouts of Hermes? Hermes, a birdman, he stole my child? Zora simply told her that Hermes betrayed her and stole her child. Sorry, I am not good at divination magic, but I know a master. If she helps, she may be able to help you find the whereabouts of Hermes. Who? Zora asked her excitedly. Lady Xanadu. Zora was stunned. Who is she? Zatanna explained to Zora. She is a descendant of an ancient race that has existed since the birth of mankind. She has the ability to be immortal and never grow old. The history of Lady Xanadu's people is even older than that of the gods. She is also a fortune teller. I think she should be able to help you see where Hermes is. Chapter 369 I want to know, how many wives will Dad have in the future? Then did you go to see him? McBee asked him curiously. I mean, did this fortune teller help you figure out your father's whereabouts? No, then it seems that her calculation is not very accurate. Zatanna's expression was a little unnatural. Anyway, I think I can give it a try. I'll go with you tomorrow. Peter said to Zatanna beside him, let's go visit this fortune teller together. He had heard of the name of this Lady of Xanadu in his previous life. Although she was a little weird, as a member of the Dark Justice League led by Diana, she should not be an ordinary charlatan. After dinner, Loki went upstairs to his room. Just as he was about to rest, Star-Lord knocked on the door outside. Knock. 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 Loki, are you there? Why are you so interested in knocking on my door tonight? Loki opened the door. What do you want to talk to me about? Star-Lord? Which rock band? Or the failure of the new American space experiment to land on the moon? No, it's about Zatanna. Star-Lord came in and said to him, I have something about her that I need to talk to you about. Zatanna? Loki looked at him with a little surprise. Dad said that you learned magic from her when you were a child. What do you think of your teacher? When Loki was having dinner just now, Peter mentioned that Star-Lord learned magic from Zatanna. No, I don't have any opinion on Zatanna. Star-Lord sat on Loki's bed, pressing it slightly. Seeing that his bed might be destroyed by Star-Lord at any time, Loki frowned slightly. You should lose weight. What? I said you can eat one less hamburger per meal in the future. Do you think I'm fat? Star-Lord looked at him in disbelief, as if he had discovered a new world. Is there a problem? Of course, it's strong. Star-Lord thinks that his body type is strong, not fat. Do you know how many rebels and superheroes I have dealt with in the world of injustice? Killer Frost, Solomon Grundy, I defeated all of them. Star-Lord straightened his chest and said to Loki in a low voice, I turned into fear and eliminated the sins of those people. Seeing that Star-Lord started to talk like Batman again, Loki was stunned for a second. He didn't want to continue to talk about these useless things with him. After all, Star-Lord is a rascal. Okay, about the question of whether you are strong or fat, we can find a time to have a good chat. But now, what do you want to talk to me about Zatanna? Actually, I saw a news before, Speaking of business, Star-Lord's expression became serious. What news? News about Zatanna's performance. Star-Lord told Loki the latest news about Zatanna that he had seen. Zatanna had held a magic show in Gotham before. The Gotham Mint provided $10 million as magic props. As a result, Zatanna disappeared at $10 million during the magic show. Although Zatanna later claimed that she didn't know what happened and that someone must have tampered with the performance, as the direct suspect of the disappearance of $10 million, Zatanna was still investigated by the police. Later, because there was no definite evidence, Zatanna was bailed out of the police station. In other words, it is possible that Zatanna secretly disappeared at $10 million. After listening to Star-Lord's story, Loki frowned and asked, "Yes, but it's just a possibility." Star-Lord shrugged his shoulders and stood up from Loki's bed. "But I believe Zatanna is not such a person. There must be some misunderstandings in the middle." "That's not necessarily the case. People will change." Loki shook his head and said to him, "You don't know, Star-Lord. Dad said that people will change. The others people say are limited to the passion at the time. Always and forever are just words to cheer up." "Then should we tell Dad?" Star-Lord asked him. "Wait." Loki looked out the window. "It's not too late to tell Dad after we figure out what happened." The next day. London, England. Zatanna used her teleportation magic to open a portal from Patrick's farm to London. Peter held Raven. Raven strongly requested Peter to bring her to London. Zora, Wonder Woman, and Zatanna came to the streets of London through the portal. Several people stood on the foggy streets, and the cold air in January bit their cheeks. The dim street lights gave the gray in the city a strange yellow. The winter mist drifting from the water in the distance enveloped the wetland. "It's really worthy of being the foggy city. We are lucky to encounter heavy fog as soon as we arrive," Zora complained to the few people, "but the fog here is indeed different from other places. This thing makes me breathless like the villains in Limehouse. If you live in the city for a few years, you will get used to it," Zatanna said as she led everyone to where Mrs. Shangdu was. Zora said she had no interest in living here. "I don't want to live here. I'd rather live on Peter's farm, thank you." "It seems that my farm has a higher status in your heart than London," Peter said to Zora. As they were talking, they came to a remote alley. Zatanna led everyone to the seemingly ordinary mansion. The sign on the door read "Welcome, don't be afraid." She locked the door. "I remember that the former Madame Xanadu would not lock the door." Zatanna walked up and knocked on the door. "Who?" "It's me, Zatanna, Madame Xanadu." "Zatanna, your own troubles haven't been solved yet, and you are bringing others to seek help." A woman's voice came from the door and asked Zatanna. Zatanna looked at Peter awkwardly. "My business is not important. I came here for other things and wanted to ask for your help, Madame Xanadu." Squeak. The door was pushed open, and a woman with long black hair and strange marks on her head appeared in front of everyone. "You are like your father, Zatanna, always being chased by troubles, but never worried." After looking at everyone, Mrs. Xanadu let Peter and his party in. Mrs. Xanadu's room exuded the smell of incense and was decorated in an ancient style. Just after taking 2 steps, she glanced at Peter and asked, "You are Peter Patrick, right? You know me?" Peter asked her in surprise. "No, but I have heard of you and your child from some people in the magic world." She looked at Raven and Peter's arms. "Powerful, evil and pure, 2 incredible powers come together. It's amazing." Mrs. Xanadu seemed to be interested in Raven and asked Peter, "Is she your daughter?" "Yes, her name is Raven." "Raven." Mrs. Xanadu reached out to Raven and gently touched her cheek. Although Raven was a little reluctant, she did not resist in the end because her father needed her help, and let her touch her face. "Can you really tell fortunes?" After the other parties had left her face, Ruwen asked curiously. Hearing Ruwen's words, Lady Shangdu was stunned for a moment. "Of course. Did you inherit it from your family?" "Yes, it's a little bit of a family relationship. But it's a long story." Madame Xanadu removed her fingers from Raven's face and said, "My grandmother was a witch. When she was a little girl picking cranberries from the swamp, she possessed incredible powers. She could always see things that ordinary people couldn't see and feel things that ordinary people couldn't feel. However, my grandmother's ability was not innate. It was acquired in the process of observing and learning the world around her." Madame Xanadu paused and said to the curious Raven, "In our world, natural things, the breath of nature, these existences can always let us see what is about to happen. My grandmother taught me to crush the cranberries in the palm of your hand, and through the crumbs, you can predict the weather." As long as you put your hands on the bark, we can know what kind of birds are perched on that tree, and twisting a baby rabbit's neck will know the hiding places of other rabbits. It's so incredible, the world is full of such magic. So, is this magic? Raven asked her hesitantly. Yes and no, child. Mrs. Xanadu turned around and walked towards the living room. Magic is full of wonderful ideas, teaching us how to make the impossible possible, but my grandmother did not change anything, she just saw the possibilities and impossibilities. The world has its own strange way of balance. Magic cannot transform the entire world, so, as people in the magic world, we should not rely too much on it. As she spoke, she took Peter and the others to a more mysterious room. Are you right, Raven? Faced with Mrs. Xanadu's question, Raven was stunned for a moment, then shook her head. I don't know, you will need to learn a lot of knowledge in the future, and you don't need to understand it now. Sit down. Mrs. Xanadu asked Peter and the others to sit down at a table covered with a tablecloth. Raven, who was held in Peter's arms, saw that the other party seemed to be really powerful, so she asked her curiously, Madam, can I ask you a question? Of course. Mrs. Xanadu turned around and faced Peter and Raven. What do you want to ask, kid? I want to know how many wives will Dad have in the future. Peter was stunned for 2 seconds, and looked at Raven in shock. You little girl, you are so young and you are already concerned about your dad's lifelong affairs. Also, can you ask this kind of question in front of so many people? If you want to ask, of course you should ask it in private. Peter, with a frown on his face, reached out and pinched Raven's face. Is there anyone who cheats on his father like you? Several people present were also stunned by Raven's question. Wonder Woman had a strange expression, with a curious and inquisitive look. Zatanna was a little embarrassed. Zora had a completely spectator-eating expression. Ahem, Raven, your question is wrong. In fact, one wife is enough, Peter said to the women against his will. Mrs. Xanadu was stunned for a moment, took out a deck of tarot cards, took out a few cards and placed them on the table, and asked Peter to turn over 2 cards. Peter hesitated for a moment, and finally stepped forward to turn over a tarot card. He was also very curious to know the answer. As a result, the card he turned over was a lover's card. Then he continued to open it and found a hangman tarot card. Well, things are a bit complicated. It's about your wife, Peter Patrick. Mrs. Xanadu looked at the 2 cards on the table and said to Peter. But I can tell you now that there is one of your wives on the scene. Chapter 370 Detective Star-Lord. Peter, Madam, do you know that what you said will be misunderstood? Diana, Zatanna and Zora all had different expressions when they heard what Madame Xanadu said. Especially Diana, she felt that the prophecy of the people present mentioned by Madame Xanadu was probably about herself. I know, that's me, I am the queen of the farm. Diana was just thinking about it, but she didn't expect Raven, who was held in Peter's arms, to suddenly speak confidently. Diana, without noticing Diana's voice, Raven said proudly, I will be the one who inherits my father's farm in the future, and I will also be the future queen of the farm. No, this is something you can't say. Peter immediately stopped Raven's nonsense. You can discuss the issue of inheriting the farm with John, Raven, but you are not allowed to mention the queen of the farm again. Why? Is it because of my age? It's not a matter of young age. Peter pinched her nose. You will understand when you grow up, Raven said unconvinced. But I am already an adult, I mean, my soul. But I heard from Persephone that you wet the bed last night. Hearing Peter expose her ugly deeds, especially in front of so many people, Raven was immediately angry and embarrassed. I didn't. Angrily, Raven turned her face away and didn't want to talk to Peter. After Raven no longer cared about how many wives Peter had, Zora and Diana finally told Mrs. Shangdu the question they wanted to ask, about the whereabouts of their children. After drawing the tarot cards and doing some divination, a purple light shot out of Lady Xanadu's eyes. I saw it. I can see a birdman in a castle made of tree roots. Lady Xanadu described what she saw, and a tree lady. She was holding the baby, and the baby had a cold light in her eyes. Glowing eyes? Tree? Birdman. Zatanna frowned when she heard the information Lady Xanadu told her. The tree lady, the queen of roots. I think that should be Demeter, Diana said her guess. Demeter is the mother of Persephone, the queen of the underworld. She is the goddess of agriculture, grain and harvest in ancient Greek mythology, and one of the 12 main gods of Olympus. Demeter taught humans to farm and give life to the earth. According to legend, she has boundless magic power, which can make the land fertile, plants lush, and grains abundant, or make the earth wither, everything wither, and no grass grow. She can make people have endless wealth, but also make people penniless and destitute. Persephone's mother, very good, her daughter was taken to the farm by Peter, and she took my child. Zora couldn't help complaining when she heard that Demeter and Hermes were colluding with each other. Seeing Peter's unfriendly look, Zora quickly explained to him, "Sorry, I was joking, Peter, I know that the queen of the underworld followed you voluntarily." Diana ignored Zora's complaints. She looked at the tarot cards on the table and said, "Hermes hid the child with Demeter, but I don't know where they are." Zora heard this and replied to her, "So it's not bad to keep a relationship with your enemy. Now here it comes in handy. She should know some news about Demeter." After finding out the child stolen by Hermes, everyone said goodbye to Mrs. Shangdu and prepared to leave. "Zatanna, maybe we can talk alone." Mrs. Shangdu stopped Zatanna, who was about to leave. Of course, when only Zatanna and Mrs. Xanadu were left in the room, Mrs. Xanadu said to her seriously, "What kind of person do you think Peter is, Zatanna?" "Peter?" Zatanna was stunned for a moment. "I don't know, but we have met and known each other since we were young. To me, Mr. Padraic is like both my father and my brother." "Is he important to you?" "Yes, but I have glimpsed something about possible destinies from him, the fate of the future universe." Mrs. Xanadu sighed and said, "The entire universe is in turmoil because of him, and the entire galaxy is burning because of him. No matter what crisis we encounter in the future, are you willing to stand on his side?" "I do." "War and death, you are constantly approaching such things, Xana, which is too cruel for you. Fate has always been like this, isn't it?" Zatanna smiled at her. "The only thing I learned from the letter my father left me is that fate is as unpredictable as magic. Never be afraid to step on the stage for fear of being exposed." Putting on a high hat, she thanked Mrs. Shangdu. "Anyway, thank you for your help this time, Mom." "You're welcome. I didn't help much. By the way, have you solved your problem in Gotham?" Mrs. Shangdu asked about Zatanna's situation in Gotham again. "Almost," Zatanna said confidently. At the same time, in order to find out whether Zatanna is a suspect who used magic to make 10 million away, Star-Lord and Loki have rushed to Gotham Circus Theater. The two have slipped into the closed theater. Standing on the stage where Zatanna once performed the US dollar disappearance spell, Star-Lord lowered his body and looked at the wooden stage. "Look, Loki, this line is a scratch that appeared recently, and there are also tiny glass fragments." Star-Lord quickly found the clue. He pressed the mask switch on his face to reveal his true face. "Maybe this is not glass, but a mirror." Star-Lord stood up with a broken glass in his hand and whispered to himself. Star-Lord had learned magic from Zatanna before, and he knew the principle of Zatanna's US dollar disappearance spell. With a strange light flashing in his eyes, Star-Lord walked towards Loki with a glass lens. Zatanna's magic uses mirrors to reflect the image of the coin. "Obviously, the mirror fragments in front of us are similar." He shone the flashlight at the magic mechanism in front of him. "I think the money should have been stolen before the magic show. The thief used the mirror to reflect the cash image before Zatanna performed the magic, and then hid the mirror at the end." "Yes, Star-Lord, you really look like Batman now, and have become a great detective." Loki patted Star-Lord on the shoulder. "Then tell me now, great detective, how did the thief hide the mirror?" "He didn't. The mirror should still be here." Star-Lord shook his head and stared at the equipment in front of him. On the top of the equipment, the flashlight flashed by. "Who's there?" A shouting voice suddenly came from outside the door. Sensing the sound coming from the closed stage, the security guard in charge of patrolling shouted in this direction. Using the key to open the door, the security guard quickly walked to the back of the stage performance equipment. In the end, no suspicious person was found. Loki and Star-Lord, who were almost discovered, have already left. Outside the theater, Star-Lord imitated Peter and rubbed his chin, saying in a low voice, "Only another magician who knows how to crack this magic, or someone who is familiar with this magic technique, can crack it." As Star-Lord spoke, he took out his mobile phone and checked Zatanna's performance information that day. "I found out that Zatanna invited two people to the stage at that time. One was the director of the Mint, and the other was a doctor who specializes in revealing magic techniques, named Monty Kane. Zatanna's purpose was to let Monty Kane see her magic and see if he could crack it." Star-Lord soon identified his suspect. "I suspect it was Kane who did it." Loki nodded. "Then let's go to Dr. Kane's house and take a look." Half an hour later, Star-Lord and Loki arrived at Dr. Kane's house. After pressing the doorbell, There was no response from inside the door. So Loki and Star-Lord sneaked into each other's house together. Looking at the figures sitting on the chairs in the living room with their backs to the two people, Star-Lord and Loki looked at each other, and then prepared to go up to see what was going on. Unexpectedly, when the two came over, they found that the person sitting on the chair was not a real person, but a dummy wearing clothes. With a bang, the floor under the feet of the two people collapsed instantly. The two were thrown directly into the basement. This is a little trick, but I didn't expect it to work. Zatanna, you finally found out that I was behind all this. A man's proud voice came from the basement, but I have taken the money you prepared for me and left here by plane. Thank you for your generous gift. $10 million. I don't know how long it will take me. Ha ha ha. Loki destroyed the sound system that made the sound and said to Star-Lord, it seems that this guy thought Zatanna could find out about him, so he left a trap for her and used the recording to taunt her, but unfortunately, Zatanna has never found this guy. This woman is a bit stupid. I don't think so. Star-Lord shook his head. Maybe Zatanna has already found out, but we don't know what she is going to do. On the other side, Monty Kane was sitting in his private plane, flying to South America. He was still immersed in his masterpiece of using Zatanna's magic to counter her and stealing $10 million. He was wearing a high-end suit and in a good mood. He looked down at the Gotham City that was about to leave. He picked up the coffee and said to his subordinates proudly, look, take a good last look, gentlemen. Next we are going to a place with a pleasant climate, more friendly people, and no extradition law. Asking his subordinates to take out the cash box, Kane was ready to appreciate his fruit. The subordinates brought the cash box over and opened it. Looking at the empty cash box, Kane was stunned. Where is his money? How could so much money suddenly disappear? Ding. At the same time, Kane's mobile phone rang suddenly. He looked down and found that there was a text message on his mobile phone. Congratulations, you have successfully donated $10 million to the Gotham Social Welfare Institute. Mr. Monty Kane, thank you very much for your support for the Social Welfare Institute. The children in the Welfare Institute appreciate your help. Looking at the text message on the mobile phone, his eyes suddenly went black and he screamed in pain. No, his own $10 million, just gone like that. At Padrick Farm, Zatanna, who had already rushed back from London, took out her cell phone and learned the news that the social welfare home had received donations. Shrugging her shoulders slightly, she whispered to herself, as a magician, I will not be fooled by such a clumsy trick. I wish you a pleasant journey, Mr. Monty Kane. After tricking Monty Kane, Zatanna felt better. Chapter 371 Zatanna's Love and Protection. Where are Loki and Star-Lord? Peter, who rushed back from London, found that Star-Lord and Loki were not there, and asked McBee in confusion. I don't know. I have been in charge of cooking. Maybe you can ask Karen and the Queen of Gods Hera, who has been watching TV all the time. The female fox pushed the question to Karen and Hera. I don't know. They have their own legs. Why do you want to ask a woman who is imprisoned? Hera said to Peter indignantly with a remote control. She secretly checked it on Peter's computer last night. The handcuffs she was wearing were the kind of sex toys between husband and wife. She was embarrassed and annoyed, and now she wanted to kill Peter directly. He wanted her to play this kind of sex game with him before she became the queen. As the Queen of Gods, she would never give in to her dignity. Really? Peter looked at Hera, who was watching TV angrily without blinking, so he came over and snatched the remote control from her hand. This woman couldn't get her attitude right, and she still wanted to watch TV. She was just dreaming. You don't seem to know your place, Hera. Peter took the remote control and glared at the woman who never looked at people straight in the eye and always looked arrogant. When the remote control was taken away, Hera's attitude immediately softened and she begged Peter, don't take my remote control, don't change the channel, that depends on your attitude. Peter glanced at the remote control in his hand. Is this thing so attractive to the Queen of Gods? He looked at the TV with suspicion, and the program on TV was about the black people's journey to find their roots. The black people who were abandoned by their fathers since childhood tried hard to find the father who abandoned them. What's so good about this thing? He was in a state of thinking about life, looking at the Queen of Gods' pleading expression, and suddenly a sense of déjà vu appeared in his mind. He was holding the remote control now, and the Queen of Gods begged him not to press it. Why do I feel like a villain in an island country romance movie? Peter coughed and threw this strange feeling out of his mind. Okay, let's get back to business. Diana needs you to take her to Demeter. She needs to find Hermes and the child." Hearing Peter's words, Hero was stunned for a moment. Then she raised her head and refused proudly, "No, I won't take you there." "What?" Diana's face immediately turned bad when she heard the other party refuse her. "I didn't kill you, but I took you under my protection." "Why did you refuse?" Before Hera could answer, an old man's voice came from outside. "She is not rejecting you, Diana, she is powerless." In the astonished eyes of Peter and others, a white-haired old man suddenly walked in from outside the farm. The bald old man with a white beard and blood on his legs and feet said to Diana, who was stunned, "She is immortal now. Only the gods of Olympus can travel back and forth between different realms." Ares, looking at the old man who suddenly appeared on the farm, Diana's eyes showed a look of shock. She didn't expect to see the god of war Ares at Peter's place. And the other party looked weaker than ever before. Ares, the god of war, had a close relationship with Diana. Ares had been training Diana since she was very young, and the relationship between the two was like that of father and daughter. However, when Ares ordered her to kill a minotaur, Diana refused him. As a result, Ares thought Wonder Woman was a loser and gave up on her. In a sense, Ares was Diana's teacher. "You look a little surprised to see me here, Diana," Ares greeted Diana. "Also, you are Peter Patrick, right? I heard that someone caused a big disturbance in the underworld, defeated Hades, and robbed his wife." Ares looked at Peter. "Peter, is he so notorious among the gods of Olympus?" "No, I'm just seeking revenge for my daughter. As for the queen of the underworld, she followed me voluntarily, so the hearsay is not credible." Peter felt that he had to explain his reputation. Person F, who had been feeling uneasy, nodded and said to Ares, "Yes, I escaped from the cage of my own accord. No need to explain. I think you did the right thing." Ares said to Hera, who was sitting on the sofa with her head held high, "Mother, how are you doing lately?" Hera snorted coldly and ignored him. "I have always been the child that mother dislikes the most, and I'm used to it." Ares, who looked like an old man, smiled bitterly at everyone, then looked at Diana. "Diana, come on, let me take you to the meteor to find the child." Seeing that Ares was willing to help, the queen of the underworld hurriedly came up and asked, "Can you take me with you? Maybe I can convince mother." She thought that maybe she could convince her mother not to be enemies with Peter and Diana. Ares, the god of war, shook his head and refused. "No, no, only Diana can do it." Zoro held Diana's hand. "No, Diana, don't let him do this. He is not trustworthy. He is my teacher." "It's okay, Zora, I will return safely." Diana smiled at Zora, then walked to Peter. "Peter, wait for me to come back." After being predicted by Madame Xanadu about Peter's wife, Diana's mentality changed a little. "Of course, protect yourself, and contact me directly if you have any questions," Peter said to the other party. But he heard Diana's tone. Why did it sound a little too intimate? After Diana and Ares left, Zatanna walked to him and said hesitantly, "Sir, can I talk to you alone?" "Of course." Peter nodded and took Zatanna to the study. "Actually, I encountered some trouble in Gotham." After struggling for a long time, Zatanna finally decided to tell Peter about her experience in Gotham. "Yes, I know, it's the $10 million case you were involved in, right?" Peter handed her a cup of coffee that McBeal had prepared. "You know that?" "Sir, not only do I know, I also guess that the real thief is someone else." Peter took a sip of the hot coffee. "And you, Zatanna, your magic is not so bad that you don't know someone is performing magic for you." Peter had seen the news about Zatanna on the internet in Gotham before. "You can always see through my mind, sir, just like when we were in the secret house." Zatanna smiled and said to him, "Yes, I know who did it, but I didn't expose it immediately. I used my magic to exchange the money he stole, and then transferred it to the social welfare institution. This money was originally the welfare institution's funds, but it was frozen by the bank, so you help them in this way." "Yes, magic should bring happiness to people, but the decline in pain of life, and the inevitable move towards death. This is the most intuitive feeling that magic has brought me in the years I have been traveling." Zatanna thought of the countless magicians she had seen heading towards destruction and death, "but I always believed that magic should have some warmth." Looking at the slightly moved Zatanna, Peter put down the coffee cup in his hand. "You should understand, Zatanna, that the magicians in this world are all a bunch of selfish bastards. If you try to be a kind magician, you will be easily hurt. But what about you, sir?" "Me? I'm not a magician, and I'm not a good person either. If I get hurt, sir, are you willing to protect me?" Just like when we were kids in the secret house, looking at Zatanna's eyes that showed her expectation of emotion, Peter nodded. Of course, we haven't changed, thank you, sir. Zatanna smiled, stretched out her arms, and gently hugged Peter. The breath of Peter gave him the same feeling as when she was a girl. Yes, he hasn't changed, and Mr. Patrick hasn't changed either. On the other side, Ares, the god of war, left the farm and walked with Diana. It pains me, little friend, when I find that you haven't made any progress in many years, Ares said to Diana, or in other words, it's not worse. Diana's eyebrows moved and she replied to him, 10 years, isn't it just a snap of the fingers for you? The time between the two of them not meeting each other was more than 10 years. 10 years? It feels longer. My life, Ares touched his snow-white beard, it feels like experiencing a reversed life. When I was young, the end of the day was marked by the arrival of the night, and now that I'm old, they are still going on. Listening to Ares' words, Diana didn't know how to reply to him. After a while, she asked him, where are you going? She saw that he was going to go into Peter's cornfield. Just follow me, I guess there must be something to see here. As he said that, he led Diana into the cornfield. When they came to a damaged flower pot with foxtail grass, Ares pulled the grass down. Diana asked in surprise, what is this, foxtail grass? He looked into the flower pot where the grass had been pulled out. Diana followed his gaze and looked inside, and saw that the inside of the flower pot was an infinite space. A staircase made of mud led from the top to the bottom. Let's go, let's save the child. Looking at the magical scene in front of her, Diana followed him into the flower pot in surprise. In the magical space made of mud, Diana saw countless fireflies flying in the air, lighting up the surrounding road. The fresh smell of mud and grass came from all around. As they walked together, Ares asked Diana, what will you do when you get the child? I will return him to Zora, but there is a price to pay. This child means something to many people, Ares said to Diana, even though Zora is as sharp as a knife, can she protect the child? No. Then are you willing to devote your whole life to be a protector? Facing Ares' question, Diana was silent for a moment and said, I will find a way. I'm sure Apollo has the same idea. He doesn't have the love and emotion for humans like you do. The gods of Olympus never consider too much about human nature. Your self-hatred offends me, god of war. A word that sounded very familiar to Diana rang in her ears. Bang! The next moment, a divine power came out of Hermes' hand and directly knocked Ares away. In Diana's shocked and hateful eyes, Hermes slowly walked towards her. Holding a magic sword in his hand, Hermes looked at her coldly. I have been waiting for this day to come, Wonder Woman. In fact, I am also afraid of this day to come. A complicated look flashed in Hermes' eyes. For so long, I can think of what you want to say to me and what you think of me. He raised the sword and pointed it at Diana. The best response I can think of is sorry, but, Hermes changed the subject, seeing who you are allied with, my guilt disappeared. Bang! Holding the magic sword, Hermes slashed at Diana fiercely. Although he was so angry that he couldn't sleep all night last night, Dan Sanchin still updated 10,000 words today. I beg for the monthly ticket from the readers. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 372 Is Star-Lord a genius? Dang! Diana blocked Hermes' sword and stabbed at him with her backhand. The swords of both sides met in the air, making a dull sound. The air was shaken and the flying fireflies were frightened and danced wildly in the air. Diana gritted her teeth and swung her sword at the opponent with all her strength. Her figure suddenly jumped in the air and slashed straight at him. Hermes, who was as fast and agile as Diana, dodged directly. After a tug of war, the two sides fought each other again. Bang! Diana showed a flaw, and when Hermes attacked, she grabbed his arm and punched him hard on the chin. Hermes, who was beaten back, shook his head at Diana. You can't defeat me, Diana. You haven't gone so far as to make my entire family my enemy, even though you've got Ares on your side. Diana, holding the Vulcan sword, said to him in a cold voice, I don't want to fight you, Hermes. Then what do you want? The child? Hearing Diana say that she wanted a child, Hermes showed a sarcastic expression on his face. Impossible. Only I can protect with safety, then we can only fight. Diana saw the other party's expression and knew that the other party would definitely not hand it over obediently. So she rushed up again holding the Vulcan sword. The two of them fought again with swords in hand. "Your moves are impressive, Diana." Hermes, flying in the air, parried Diana's attack and forced her back. Roaring, Diana rushed directly towards him. "That's because the most powerful teacher in the world once taught me. I am the daughter of the Amazon." Hermes, who had unparalleled speed, dodged Diana's attack, moved behind her, and hit Diana on the shoulder with an elbow. Diana, staggering after being hit, rushed forward. "But it seems that you have never learned the dance of steps, Diana." "Speed cannot be taught." Hermes, who was suspended in the air, flashed a trace of pride in his eyes and said to her, "And no one can be faster than me." Dang! Hermes flew over and stabbed Diana with a sword. Facing the sudden increase in speed of Hermes, Diana barely dodged. But the next second, bang! Hermes' backhand hilt hit Diana's cheek hard. Diana's body bounced back after being hit by this blow, and hit the wall heavily with a bang. The mud wall cracked, and cracks appeared behind her. After letting out a painful groan, Diana fell to the ground with a thump. "Damn it!" Covering her chest, Diana quickly stood up from the ground and raised the Vulcan sword to her chest. Dang! Hermes' sword almost stabbed her chest. Enduring the pain, Diana gritted her teeth, aimed at the feathers on the opponent's ankle, and chopped with a sword. Most of the feathers on Hermes' legs, which were shaped like bird legs, were cut off by Diana. The feathers on his legs were suddenly cut off by Diana, and Hermes immediately lost his balance and fell from the air. Plop! Hermes fell heavily from the air, splashing a large amount of dust. Holding the Vulcan sword, Diana rushed up and stabbed down with the Vulcan sword while Hermes was falling from the air. Bang! The Vulcan sword was pierced into the soil by her. Diana did not cut off Hermes' head directly. Looking at the other party's painful expression, she drew out the Vulcan sword, glanced at the other party, ignored him, and then rushed into the space. A few minutes later, they came to the deepest part. Demeter, with emerald green plants on her head and almost half of her body made of vines, had her back to Diana. Hearing Diana's voice, she turned around. Diana was shocked to see a big hole in Demeter's vine-like abdomen. She hurried over to support the other person who was about to fall to the ground. "Who did it?" "It was the god of war. He took the child you wanted." Hearing that Ares took the child away, Diana was stunned. What is this? Even the teacher can't be trusted? Although she wanted to chase Ares, Diana did not ignore Demeter, but helped her sit down. Seeing Diana helping herself, Demeter shook her head and said to her, "You came to my house with a purpose, but when you saw that I was injured, you didn't chase Ares. My safety became more important. No wonder the god of war hates you. Maybe he is more cruel to you than he hates himself, because you will never kill decisively and abandon these useless human emotions." Listening to Demeter's evaluation of herself, Diana did not speak, but silently put away the Vulcan sword and turned away. She is the daughter of God, but more of a daughter of mankind. She loves herself, but also loves mankind. She felt that there was not much to communicate with these gods who did not have normal human emotions. Dejected Diana, just returned to the farm, pushed open the door of the living room, and heard laughter coming from the living room. She looked up in surprise and found that Hera, Zora, and Ares were sitting on the sofa, teasing the baby together. Zora, seeing Diana come in, the excited Zora quickly picked up the baby boy and came to her. "Thank you, Diana, you and Ares helped me bring the child back." Shocked Diana cast her eyes on Ares, who was drinking from an aluminum bottle. Ares, the god of war, shook the bottle in his hand at him. "You owe me a favor, little guy. If you mean an apology, then Diana was ready to apologize to the other party. She misunderstood Ares and really thought that he had run away with a baby. "Forget it, this is not a big deal, no need to apologize." Ares waved his hand to stop Diana from apologizing. On the other side, Peter went downstairs and saw Diana and Ares bringing the boy back. He walked forward and took a look at the naked baby boy. "Is this the little guy who caused the Ragnarok?" Looking at the other's kicking feet, Peter didn't find anything special about him. "Have you named him yet?" Peter asked a few people. "No, not yet." Zora shook her head and said to Peter, "Peter, you have been helping me and protecting his safety. Why don't you give him a name?" "Me." Peter was stunned for a moment, looked at the baby boy she was holding, and after thinking for a moment, he said, "Why not call him Jack or Daniel, or Steve?" Peter cast an inquiring look at Diana. In most of Diana's world lines, Her boyfriend's first love is named Steve Trevor. Diana's face was full of question marks. Why are you looking at me? Feeling that Peter's eyes were not normal, Diana asked in surprise. Nothing, I remembered a friend. Peter changed the subject calmly. Looking at Diana's expression, the Diana in his own world probably didn't know the pilot who broke into Paradise Island. Peter coughed and looked at Hera, who was holding the baby boy. Queen Hera did not hurt the baby boy in front of her, but said with a complicated expression, "What a little mudblood, how about calling him Zook?" Peter finally thought of a name for the baby boy. Zook. Hera repeated the name that was a little similar to Zeus, and expressed her approval. "I like this name." Diana also nodded. "I think it fits well." As she said that, she reached out and gently touched Zook's face. "He's so cute." At night, Azu, who was sitting at the dining table, saw that there were fewer people in the room, and asked Peter in surprise, "Dad, where are Diana and the others?" Not only Diana was not there, but Hera and Zara were also not on the farm. Azu was still a little uncomfortable without the two women who quarreled every day. Zatanna picked up a piece of bread and said to Zuko. They accompanied Zook to the hospital for a checkup. The medical conditions in Smallville are not as good as those in Metropolis. "I guess they will stay in Metropolis for a while." Zuko nodded and complained, "The relationship between them Greek gods is really complicated. They were enemies one moment and became close family members the next." Clark nodded in agreement. "In Greek mythology, their relationship is even more complicated, but I think these so-called gods are not emotionless." Hera, who became immortal, obviously has feelings for Zora and the baby. Clark's eyes have recovered at this time and he can see things vaguely. Now he has replaced his sunglasses with myopic glasses. Pushing his eye sockets, Clark cast his eyes on Peter. Only the Godfather's farm, such an atmosphere, would be like this, right? Peter listened to Zuko and Clark's discussion and looked at Star-Lord and Loki, who pretended to be indifferent. "Loki, Star-Lord, maybe you can explain to me where you went during the day." Hearing Peter's question, Loki and Star-Lord were both stunned. Kara, McBee and Persephone, who were holding Raven, also cast curious eyes on the two. "Let's go investigate a case involving Zatanna." Star-Lord did not hide anything and directly told Peter about the actions of Loki during the day. Zatanna was stunned when she heard that it was related to her. Peter put down the cutlery in his hand. "So what did you find out?" "Yes, I found some important information." Star-Lord told Peter the real murderer of the missing $10 million. Peter was a little surprised to hear Star-Lord's logical reasoning. When did Star-Lord become so smart? Could it be that this kid has been hiding his true colors all along? Zatanna, who was standing next to him, had already punished the murderer, but when she saw the two people taking the initiative to help her investigate, she felt a warm current in her heart and thanked them. "Thank you, Star-Lord, Loki, thank you." At the same time, on the dark ocean crater, Chushin held a black sword in his hand and walked towards Cassandra, who was waiting for him. He took the robe handed to him by the other party, put it on, and thanked her. "How is it? Did you get your weapon?" "Well, I signed a temporary treaty with Poseidon. My revengeful anger does not include the ocean and the underworld. He returned the weapon to me." Chapter 373, The Fall of the God of War. 2 days later, in the metropolis. It was late at night, and Diana, Zora, Hera, and the God of War Ares were walking on the deserted streets. The cold wind on the street made the few pedestrians unconsciously wrap their clothes tightly and walk forward quickly. When they walked to the entrance of an alley and were about to leave, they suddenly saw two figures blocking their way. Cassandra, who was wearing a robe, lifted the hood on her head and revealed her true face. "It's so hard to find you," Cassandra smiled and said to the stunned people. You are my child, my first child." After a while, Hera looked at the newborn standing in front of her and said in shock, "You're..." Chushin lowered his head, looked at Hera, who was full of shock and sadness, and shook his head. "No, it's too late for you to recognize me now, Mother, but I saved your life." Hearing Hera's words, he gritted his teeth and glared at her. "Do you have any idea of what kind of life I have lived until now?" The sad Hera wanted to hold Chushin's hand. "But you can have a life because of me. It was me who convinced the witch to let you go. I did all this because I love you." "Love?" Snap. Chushin grabbed Hera's hand. "You dare to say you love me? Everything I do is out of hatred. Hatred for you. Hate everything in the world." With a bang, he pushed Hera to the ground heavily. Ignoring the crying Hera, it looked at Zook in Zora's arms. "Is this the last son of Zeus? Very good, hand him over to me." He wanted to use this last son of Zeus to enter Olympus. He was not an Olympian god, so he could not enter that realm, so he wanted to use the baby in front of him. No. Don't even think about it, Zora shouted at him, and immediately ran forward with Zook in her arms. Chushin frowned and tried to stop him, but was punched by Diana, who suddenly jumped up. Bang! Chushin's body hit the ground heavily, and the hard ground collapsed in an instant. Diana jumped in front of him, held his body down, and raised her other fist. Chushin looked at Diana, who had knocked him away, and her face remained unchanged for thousands of years, showing a hint of surprise. Who are you? Great, you don't know me, and I don't know you. Bang punch! Diana gritted her teeth and hit him in the face with her fist. Chushin, whose arms and legs were wrapped in black armor and had dragon bones inserted into them, immediately counterattacked and punched Diana out. Standing up from the ground, he squinted at Diana, who stood up from the ground. You are the Wonder Woman that Poseidon mentioned, right? He hinted to me that he would kill you first. That depends on whether you can do it. Chushin snorted coldly. Facing Diana, who rushed up again, he grabbed her neck and lifted her into the air. Diana was shocked and angry, but she didn't expect that the opponent was stronger and faster than her. She endured the pain in her neck and raised her fist to hit the opponent. As a result, she felt incredible. One hand pinched her Chushin, and the other hand easily blocked her attack. Diana, who was shocked, tried to use her legs to hit the opponent again. As a result, before her legs could attack the opponent, Chushin's fist exploded. Diana's chest was hit hard by this blow and fell backwards. Bang! She was hit hard on the ground by Chushin, and countless dust filled the air, and a sharp pain instantly attacked her whole body. Diana lay on the ground, gasping for breath, looking at the opponent with resentment and disbelief. How is it possible? Why is the opponent so powerful? This is no longer an ordinary Olympian god, right? Bang! Bang! Walking in front of Diana, Chushin grabbed Diana, who was lying on the ground again. I am the nameless god, the destroyer of souls. With a roar, Chushin grabbed Diana's body and slammed it heavily to the ground. The hard stone ground was smashed to pieces by Diana's body. Diana felt the pain was about to tear her whole body apart. She spat out a mouthful of blood and her face turned pale in an instant. Hey, stop, eldest son! Just as he continued to attack Diana, the god of war Ares shouted at him, maybe you need me to give you a little advice, opinion? I don't need any of your opinions, old man. Chushin turned around disdainfully and said to Ares. Then my army should give you some advice. Ares snapped his fingers, and a gray fog rose in the space where the few people were. In Chushin's surprised eyes, shouting came faintly from the gray fog. It seemed that countless soldiers were shouting and were about to rush out of the fog. Diana, who fell to the ground and was surrounded by gray fog, was shocked to see soldiers running past her with weapons raised. Lobster soldiers wearing red uniforms and tricorn hats, holding muskets, Japanese samurai riding tall horses and covered in armor, soldiers participating in the Crimean War wearing single-breasted uniforms with stand-up collars and Prussian-style coal-scuttle-pointed leather helmets, and soldiers dressed in sky-blue uniforms and holding Mauser rifles in World War I costumes. These warriors from different eras and countries were summoned by the god of war Ares at this time. These troops, Ares, Diana looked at the god of war with disbelief. They come from an era when songs do not sing about weakness. Every soldier here has his own song, Ares said to Diana while shouting, while commanding the soldiers to attack. Attention. Relax. Attack on the right. Looking at the soldiers in front of her, Diana thought of her Amazon sisters. Ares commanded the soldiers to attack Chushin, and said to Diana, they are warriors, just like you are an Amazon. None of them died in battle, but gradually grew old like me. A soldier wearing a British uniform from World War II jumped on Chushin's back and stabbed his neck with a dagger in his hand. More soldiers rushed over and attacked him. Bang! Chushin waved his fist and instantly knocked these soldiers away. But more fearless soldiers rushed up again. Bang! 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 Waving his fists, facing the attack of the entire army, Chushin was still as ferocious as a tireless beast. Blood spurted out, and the sound of fists colliding with flesh continued to sound, and countless soldiers were knocked down by him. On the other side, Hira, who was trapped in the army, took Zora's hand, and the two of them shuttled among the soldiers and fled backwards. It's crazy, we have to get out of here. The Queen of Gods, who was wearing a red dress, pulled her dress with one hand and pulled Zora, who was holding the baby, with the other hand. Bang! The next moment, Chushin, covered in blood, jumped in front of the two. Grabbing Hera's throat, Chushin lifted his mother into the air. With his eyes full of anger, he gritted his teeth and said to Hera, "You actually helped that brat instead of your own son. Your true colors are revealed, bitch." Bang! As soon as he finished speaking, a bullet hit his brow. Chushin, who was hiding, tilted his head slightly, looked towards the place where the gunshot came from. As a result, he saw Ares pointing a Mauser rifle at him. "Don't talk to our mother like that." Chushin put Hera down and walked slowly towards Ares. "You're right, then tell me, how can I communicate with the gods?" Facing Chushin's attack, Ares, who looked like an old man, took a Chinese kung fu start. "I'll communicate with you with my fists, old fool. My fists can flatten mountains." Chushin accelerated suddenly, rushed over and punched Ares. As a result, his fist was blocked by Ares. Ares slapped Chushin's abdomen and repelled him. But soon Ares fell into disadvantage in the confrontation between the two. Chushin grabbed Ares' neck and lifted him into the air. "I was so blind that I actually believed that the child was the key to my entry into Olympus. Now, I want to snatch your position as the god of war." As he said this, he was ready to kill Ares directly and snatch his godhood. As long as he killed the god of war, according to the rules of Olympus, he would be the god of war. Ares, who was grabbed by the throat, used all his strength to cast a look at Diana, who was lying on the ground. Seeing the other's eyes, Diana instantly understood what it meant. Diana's tears instantly burst out. Although she was in great pain, she still tried her best to pick up the Vulcan sword from the ground. She stood up and rushed towards Ares at her fastest speed, regardless of the pain in her body. Swish, the long sword pierced through Ares' chest, and then penetrated his body in the extremely shocked eyes of Chushin. "Ah!" Diana burst out with all her strength, roared and used the long sword to pierce Ares, and continued to pierce Chushin's body with the remaining force. Plop! The two fell to the ground together. Diana immediately knelt down, hugged Ares' head, and burst into tears. "No, no, Ares," Ares, with blood gushing out of his mouth, said to Diana in a weak voice, "You have no choice but to choose the path of a warrior. I am proud of you, child, and I will choose the same path. I'm sorry for this. You are now shouldering my responsibilities. I'm sorry that I can no longer be by your side and watch you solve problems with gloating." Diana held his hand. "Please call me little one, like before. Little one, can you remember me forever? I will never forget you." Diana closed her eyes and held Ares' hand tightly. Hearing Diana's answer, Ares slowly closed his eyes in satisfaction. The gray fog around him gradually dissipated, and the soldiers also slowly disappeared with him. Chapter 374, Ruin. I love the earth, and I love my father even more. Hera and Zora, seeing Ares' sacrifice, walked to Diana with heavy hearts. Zora held the baby boy and put her hand on Diana's shoulder, giving her silent comfort. "He's gone." Diana held Ares and said to Nanan. Hera squatted down and said to Diana, "Let me say goodbye to him for the last time." Diana nodded and gently put Ares down. Hera held Ares' head with a sad look and kissed him gently on the forehead. "War, please find the peace you have never had in your life in the world of death." Zora, who was next to him, looked at Ares, who had lost his breath of life, and the Queen of Gods, who said goodbye to him, with tears flashing in her eyes. She was immersed in sadness when she suddenly heard a voice behind her. Looking back, she was surprised to find that it was the sun god Apollo. Apollo was accompanied by the goddess of hunting Artemis. The two looked at the messy ground and then looked at Diana and Zora. "Diana, long time no see." Seeing Apollo suddenly appear, Diana stood up alertly. "Why? Are you also going to take Zook away?" "No, I won't. We have an agreement." Apollo cast his eyes on Chushin's body on the ground. "I am here to take him away. Even if he dies, I will imprison and suppress his body so that he will never have a chance to turn over." Apollo's eyes were burning with flames. "I want his record in this world to disappear completely, so that everyone knows that I am the eldest son of Olympus. I am the heir of Olympus." Seeing Apollo's madness at this time, Hera frowned tightly. "You are blinded by ambition, Apollo." "Oh? Mother, it sounds like you have become a good person now. Don't be ridiculous. If we talk about ambition, you are the biggest one." After Apollo finished speaking to Hera, he nodded to Artemis, who was covered in silver moonlight. Artemis walked to Chushin and lifted him up. "Well, goodbye, everyone." Apollo said goodbye to Diana and the others. "By the way, Diana, I'm looking forward to you becoming the god of war." A space gate opened, and Apollo walked in while speaking. Then Artemis, who was holding the corpse of the newborn, looked at Diana and walked into the space gate. Diana wiped the blood off her face and watched the two disappearing backs. The cold wind on the street was whistling, and the fallen leaves were blown by the wind and rolled forward. Diana's heart was also wrapped in coldness. In the distance, Cassandra, who had escaped from the battlefield, watched the corpse of the newborn being taken away by Apollo, and a trace of unwillingness flashed in her eyes. The next day, Padwick Farm. Zatanna was teaching Raven's magic that attached the soul to perceive. Zatanna was quite surprised at first that Raven's soul could attach to other people. But when she thought that she was Peter's daughter, it didn't feel strange. After all, Azu, Star-Lord, and Loki were not ordinary people. I heard that some children gain recognition from their parents by standing out in math tests or becoming the focus of the school ballet, or they consciously become the best children in the school. Zatanna talked about her childhood, but if you are under the witchcraft guidance of the magical human ruling elite, the situation is different. Especially two of the elites are your father and mother. Other people's expectations of you will be sky high. Raven nodded and asked, "So, Zatanna, did you grow up in such an environment?" "Well, most of the time, I would rather hope that I could choose the ballet." Zatanna, wearing a black magic dress, stood in the courtyard and said to Raven, "Okay, let's officially start. I will teach you magic." "Raven, actually, I want to learn magic more. Once you have learned magic, magic will be easy. I heard from Mr. Peter that you escaped from the hands of Hades in the underworld. That shows that your magic level is not bad." Raven's face turned red when she heard Zatanna mention her escape journey in the underworld. "Actually, I don't know how I did it. Dad said I exploded in a crisis." "That means you're not bad, Raven. Let's start from the basics. I'll teach you how to fly." Zatanna came up and said she wanted to teach her how to fly. Raven blinked in confusion. The basics of flying? Of course. Then why can't Clark learn to fly for so long? "Well, okay, I said it wrong. It's not flying, it's floating." Zatanna also felt that it might be a little early for her to teach flying, so she changed her words. 10 minutes later, Raven closed her eyes and slowly flew into the sky under Zatanna's shocked gaze. With her eyes closed and her arms open, Raven slowly flew upwards. Feeling the wind beside her ears, she kept reminding herself, "Don't look down, don't look down, don't look down." The air seemed to be getting thinner and the wind beside her ears was getting noisier. Raven, who couldn't help her curiosity, secretly opened one eye. As a result, she saw that she was flying up in the sky, and the ground was getting farther and farther away under her feet. The farm that was familiar to her in the past gradually became the size of a firebox. Oops! After opening her eyes, Raven immediately realized that she had made a mistake. The sky was so high that she felt dizzy. The magic that controlled her body became restless. The next second, Raven screamed and fell directly from the sky. At the critical moment, Peter, who heard the sound in the farm, flew over and hugged Raven. "Dad, if you want to fly, you must overcome your fear." "Raven." Peter held his daughter in the air and scratched her nose. "Fear? Fear of heights." Raven tilted her head. "That's not easy, Dad. I can help you." "So, Raven, do you want to experience the taste of flying?" "Real flying, of course, although I have experienced it in my dreams." "Then get ready for takeoff." Raven took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and then opened them. "Dad, I'm ready." Peter held Raven, used runes to protect her body, and then flew forward. Boom! With a burst of air explosion, the two disappeared in the air in an instant. Zatanna, on the ground, watching Peter take Raven away, was stunned. "How can you teach magic like this?" Boom! As Peter accelerated in the air and clouds around him were swept away layer by layer. Raven only felt the wind whistling in her ears, and the surrounding scenery was constantly accelerating. Everything was full of incredible and novel experiences. It was like the feeling of flying in a dream. At first, Raven held Peter's hand tightly and was still a little scared, but after gradually getting used to the wonderful experience of flying, she gradually let go of Peter's hand. When flying to the metropolis, the buildings under her feet seemed to be flowing, forming a magnificent picture, which made her mood unable to calm down for a long time. Boom! As Peter accelerated, the two flew over the city quickly. The seaside with howling wind and waves. The blue sea surface was extremely magnificent and beautiful. The sun shone on the sea, sparkling and shining. Looking down from the air, the clouds floated in the sea of clouds like icebergs. Peter held Raven and flew towards the sea. With a boom sound, The sea surface was accelerated by the sonic boom, splashing countless water splashes into the air spectacularly, and then being left far behind. Raven seemed to feel the cool feeling of water droplets splashing on her face. As Peter flew, the sun gradually set and the sky became dim. Light and darkness quickly intersected in the air. Penetrating through the clouds, a flash of lightning flashed through the dense dark clouds, instantly illuminating the night sky. The bright clouds appeared above the sky, and their edges shone under the reflection of the city. Raven, who was held by Peter and flying at high speed, even wanted to reach out and grab such a beautiful cloud. During the flight, the cone-shaped cloud formed by the sonic boom appeared and then quickly disappeared. Peter held Raven and flew through the clouds in the dark night, from the dark to the bright, and the day returned. Excited Raven looked down and found an endless prairie. Peter flew towards the ground, slowed down his flying speed, and flew close to the ground urgently. The zebras who were leisurely eating grass were frightened and fled in all directions. The giraffe stretched its neck to eat leaves, and before it could react, it felt a stream of air flying past it. The lion was hunting its prey and running forward, but the next second a figure faster than it quickly surpassed it. Raven opened her excited eyes and watched the wild animals that she could touch fly in front of her eyes, and her heart seemed to be filled with countless waves. She was so excited that she shouted to Peter, "Dad, I am the king of the world, king of the world, hold on, we are going to speed up." Boom! Peter held the king of the world and flew into the air, and flew out of the earth in an instant. In space, Peter finally stopped flying. Holding Raven, the two cast their eyes on the blue planet in front of them. Raven's heart was still beating wildly. The flying experience just now was an experience she had never had in her life. An extremely light power was released from her body, as if the whole world had become weightless in an instant. "Dad, it's so beautiful." Gently letting go of the hand that was hugging Peter's neck, Raven stood beside Peter, suspended in space, looking at the blue earth in front of her. Oceans, lightning, clouds, cities, and running animals, are these the earth? These are the components of the earth you live on, Raven. It's magnificent, isn't it? Peter's eyes also looked at the earth with Raven. "This is my home, and it's also the place I want to protect." Raven gently hugged Peter, her purple eyes sparkling. "Thank you, Dad. Thank you for letting me see these." "You're welcome, Raven. Have you overcome your fear of flying?" "Maybe, but I have a reason not to be afraid, Dad." Peter's eyebrows moved. "What is it?" "I love the earth, and I love Dad even more." Chapter 375, Azu's Girlfriend? "I love you, too, Raven. The earth is so beautiful, it's worth our protection, right?" Peter looked into Raven's eyes and asked her. Although he occupied Persephone's body, Raven's eyes were just as lively and beautiful as hers. "Yes, everything is bright and shining." Raven opened her arms and felt the feeling of flying just now. Before, she was afraid of the sky with her eyes closed, but now it seemed that all the fear in her heart disappeared. Peter was beside her, which gave her more courage. The scenes she had experienced with her father before were played in her mind. In the morning, she rode on Peter's shoulders to go shopping in the supermarket. She liked that position. Everything in the supermarket was shining in a different way. Then came the best time of the day, an outing, hiding in the cornfield so that no one could find her. The beautiful and short day passed quickly, and then in the evening, the breeze brought a feast for the sense of smell, and there was a crazy chorus everywhere. All kinds of creatures were the same, some chirping, some cooing, some croaking, and some complaining. At night, my father would tell me stories, and I would lie in bed with my thoughts drifting away. When I went to bed, I would dream of running on the ground with Fukin. I could run as fast and as far as I wanted, and I could do whatever I wanted, and nothing could stop me. Then I would fly while running. Fukin flew along the ground, and I flew high into the sky, opened my arms, and flew forward freely. When I opened my eyes, Raven even felt that the space in front of her gradually turned into the farm she was familiar with. The air was fresh, and there were sounds everywhere, too many to even sort out. The cold wind from the farm came out, and millions of stars unfolded in front of her. Taking a deep breath, Raven spread her arms, imitated the flying posture in her dream, and flew forward. The whistling wind blew beside her ears, and the feeling of falling at high speed hid her. "Relax. You can do it, Raven." Encouraging herself, Raven used the magic taught by Professor Zatanna to make her body feel like a bird. There was a rapidly falling wind beside her ears, and the blue earth kept enlarging in front of her eyes. Boom! On the way down, Raven finally spread her wings and flew forward. The clouds were swept away by her, and she controlled her body and flew above the clouds. Feeling the wind and the white clouds beside her ears, Raven's mouth curved into an arc swoosh. The next second, Peter flew in front of her. Well done, Raven, you spent a day learning to fly. I guess Clark will have something to say, Peter said to his daughter with relief. His little cotton jacket is really a genius. Really, Dad? Can I make you proud of me? Raven asked him with sparkling eyes. Of course, you will always be my pride. Peter touched Raven's hair and said to her. Thank you, Dad. Raven's mood became excited. The two watched the sunset over the sea of clouds together. Raven put her head close to Peter's arms and didn't speak for a long time. Smellville High School. Are your eyes better? Azu asked Clark, who changed into a plain mirror. Yes, much better. Now I can take off my glasses without any problem. Clark took off his glasses and said, I just like the feeling of wearing glasses recently. Well, this can also be considered a disguise, but I think for a low-key person like you, Clark, you don't need to wear glasses to disguise yourself. Facing Azu's teasing, Clark shook his head and said, No, I don't want to disguise myself. I just feel that wearing glasses adds a kind of inhibitor switch to my superpowers, making me more cautious about my abilities. You are not Ultraman, Clark. The two walked towards the lockers while talking. In the noisy corridor, Azu was about to walk towards the lockers when he heard a whistle in the corridor. Look, a new hot girl, the whistling student shouted to his friends. Azu cast his eyes to where everyone was looking, and found a hot girl walking towards her. The beauty with a floral pink dress and wavy golden long hair immediately attracted the student's attention. Hey, John, the beauty took the initiative to step forward and greet Azu. Seeing the other person seem familiar, Azu hesitated and thought for a moment, then asked uncertainly, Are you Abby? He remembered that there was a girl named Abby who served as the mascot of the football team. Because she had acne all over her face, she was often bullied by other cheerleaders. Last time when the football team was recruiting new members, he and Clark were at the school gate. When they saw the football team members pushing Abby, he was a little uncomfortable and punched the players a few times, and even called his father for this. But he could not connect the former bean-curd Abby with the radiant beauty in front of him. No, it's Abby now, Abby said to him with a smile while opening the locker. You have changed a lot. Azu looked at the other person and said. If the other person had not spoken to him a few times before, he might not have recognized her. Yes, I've been healing a little fast recently, Abby said, pointing to the cabinet in front of her. It seems that I'm a little lucky. This old cabinet is the only thing I left this year. Well, that's indeed no problem, Zu casually responded with a few words and returned to the issue that he was most concerned about. So, how did you change? Zu was very curious about how a girl who used to be inconspicuous suddenly became a hot girl. Well, you know, I think it's just when one day you realize that instead of spending time complaining about why everyone doesn't like you, you can think of ways to do something for yourself, Abby explained with a smile. Sorry, I have to go first. See you later, Abby greeted Zu and walked towards the classroom. After she left, Clark walked up to her. Is she Abby? Yes, the change is huge, isn't it? Clark took off his glasses, so much that I doubt if my eyes are still healed. She was obviously not like this before. With a bang, Zu closed the door of the locker. People change, especially women. I thought you understood this earlier than me, Zu complained to Clark. Maybe. I'm not good at dealing with girls' problems. Clark locked his school bag in the locker and walked into the classroom. It was time to leave school. Zu and Clark were about to leave together, and Abby took the initiative to walk up to Zu and said, Hey, John, can we talk? I mean, let's talk alone. Clark glanced at the two of them and said consciously, Okay, John, I'll go back first. After saying hello to Zu, Clark left to leave the two of them alone. What do you want to talk about? Zu asked with a frown. I want to ask if you are free? My friend gave me a ticket for a magic show in the auditorium. They said that a very famous magician will perform in the theater. If you are free, can I invite you? Abby asked with expectation in her eyes. No, I'm not free. Facing the other party's invitation, Zu refused directly without understanding the situation. As for the reason for the refusal, not to mention that the other party is not the mature type that I like. Even if it is, I am not very interested in dating now. As a man who considers himself a career-oriented man, Azu has always believed that he should focus on his career first and put love and marriage in the back. Besides, his father is not married yet, So why should he be in a hurry? Seeing Azu's direct rejection of her, Abby left with some disappointment. Azu turned around and left without any regrets. At night, Peter and his family enjoyed dinner on the farm. "John," Peter suddenly asked Azu without any action, "I heard that you met a girl at school." Hearing Peter's question, McBee, Kara, Zatanna, Star-Lord, Loki, and the Queen of the Underworld at the table all stood up their ears, and even Raven, who was sitting alone in the child's chair, put down the chopsticks in her mouth and looked at Azu curiously. Azu glanced at Clark, who was pretending to eat. Needless to say, it must be Clark, the bastard, who told the secret to his father. "I know a lot of girls at school, Dad," Azu said calmly. "If you want to ask about dating, Dad, I'm not interested in this kind of thing." "Why?" McBee asked Azu. "Because I think I have more important things to do." Peter listened to Azu's speech and fell into deep thought. He didn't expect Azu to be a career-oriented man. "What is the important thing? I need to protect the farm and my father. As the eldest son of the family, I have such a responsibility," Azu said with a serious expression. "Peter," you said, "why does it seem like your dad doesn't let you date?" Although I was a little touched by Azu's words about protecting the farm and myself. "But the eldest son of the family has nothing to do with you dating, right?" "Ahem. John, actually you can try. The responsibility you shoulder has little to do with your dating," Peter tried to persuade Azu. What if Azu is like Azu in the black robe world, single for decades? He estimated that he would be numb as a father. Azu pondered for a moment and said to Peter, "Dad, you are not in a hurry, and neither am I anyway. You are not married yet." Peter was in a daze for 2 seconds. Then he slowly cast his eyes to Zatanna with a strange expression, McBee who pretended not to hear, and Kara who nodded in agreement. Staring at Azu with a bad look, Peter pretended to be dissatisfied and slapped the table. "What does your dating have to do with your dad's marriage? Do you want to rebel, John? This naughty kid is really like a jerk if he is not punished for 3 days." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.